Chapter 840. Ing Li's death was way too unjust. That was the thought that flashed through the minds of the demons. Even Ing Li himself had not expected that Su Zimo would dare to attack and kill him right in front of high-level fiend demons. He did not even have the slightest bit of defense. "How dare you!" The fiend demon closest to Su Zimo roared with a menacing expression and wanted to revert to his true form to charge over. Unexpectedly, Su Zimo did not even turn back as he swung his arm and swung it in reverse. That arm was like a divine whip that tore through the air with a loud crack. Although the arm seemed weak, it released a terrifying killing power when it landed on the fiend demon's head. The arm coiled around the fiend demon's head. Sniff. The moment the fiend demon conjured a menacing wolf head, Su Zimo snapped its neck forcefully and plucked the wolf head off. The wolf head was completely unrecognizable and the essence spirit within was killed instantly. Demon beasts could revert to their true forms almost instantly. However, the two of them were extremely close and that single instant was enough for Su Zimo to kill them. In the blink of an eye, two mid-level fiend demons died in the hands of Su Zimo. It was only at this moment that the demons realized that although the territorial lord of Howling Moon Mountain was a low-level fiend demon, he was truly capable. At the very least, there were not many demons present that could compare to his ferocity and decisiveness. "All of you, kill these ants for me. All the fiend demons that follow me will be rewarded from today onwards." Protector 1 waved his hand and gave the order with a cold expression. No matter what, the main targets of the four protectors were the old ape and the pale-faced burly man. Demonic chi surged into the skies from the flat ground and a series of roars could be heard. The demons were riled up when they heard Protector 1's order. "Don't just stand there, attack." Su Zimo nudged Monkey and hollered. Monkey reacted immediately and took out Imminent from his storage bag. Thumping his chest and stomping his feet, he swung Imminent horizontally and repelled anything that came into contact with it. Although Monkey was a low-level fiend demon as well, he could fight against ordinary mid-level fiend demons with Imminent. Solitary Cloud let out a long roar and transformed into his main body. The long and slender flood dragon's body was covered in scales that flickered with streak after streak of divine light. It leapt into the air, the claws beneath its abdomen sharp. The flood dragon's tail moved about, making the void tremble. His strength was obviously more terrifying than 100 years ago. Ling Hu growled deeply and transformed into a massive body. He lunged into the crowd of demons and extended his tiger claws towards a fiend demon in front of him. "Low-level fiendish demon, you're courting death." The fiend demon sneered with a look of disdain. Channeling his dermic powers, he summoned a long saber and slashed towards Su Zimo with a cold glint. Clang clang. 4 incomparably sharp claws protruded from Ling Hu's tiger claws that were even sharper than white jade. Clang. 2 tiger claws crisscrossed and directly cut the long saber in half. Poochie. Thereafter, Ling Hu leaped forward and pierced the fiend demon's head with his tiger claws. His essence spirit was destroyed and his massive body collapsed in a pool of blood, dying with grievances. Ching Ching opened her mouth gently and summoned her emerald green feather fan. She injected the power of her essence spirit into the feather fan and gathered dermic powers. The feather fan opened against the wind and a layer of emerald green flames burned on its surface, resembling jade. The surrounding temperature rose rapidly. Swoosh! Ching Ching fanned forcefully. A ball of emerald green flames swept out and engulfed 3 fiend demons instantly. The flames were extremely powerful and caused the 3 fiend demons to shriek in pain. No matter how they struggled, the flames could not be extinguished. The 3 fiend demons were impressive as well. They hardened their hearts and spat out mouthfuls of demonic blood that splattered on their bodies. Shing! The flames were extinguished instantly and thick smoke billowed. Ching Ching felt that it was a pity. It was a pity that they were a major cultivation realm apart. If they were low-level fiend demons, they would not have been able to withstand the might of the emerald green flames. Even so, the 3 fiend demons were burned wretchedly with their flesh lacerated. Some of the fiend demons could not hold it in any longer and released spirit consciousness attacks against Monkey and the others. Bang! Little Fox released her grip and a pitch-black umbrella opened up. It spun slowly and emitted an endless dark glow, blocking the spirit consciousness attacks. The pitch-black umbrella was a rare essence spirit dermic weapon. However, the difference in their cultivation realms was way too great. Little Fox was already struggling to defend against a few spirit consciousness attacks. Thankfully, most of the fiend demons were attracted by Su Zimo alone. Otherwise, they would not have been able to hold out for long if the demons had gathered their strength and attacked Monkey and the others. Su Zimo rampaged through the crowd with a torrential blood chi. None of the mid-level fiend demons could defend against his physical strength. Furthermore, half of his attention was focused on the platform. Although he was the first to attack, he did not lose his cool. Su Zimo knew that very well. The main battlefield of Ape Chatter Ridge's internal strife was on the platform. Given their combat strength, they could not determine the direction of the situation. If the old ape's side could win, everyone would naturally be happy. However, if the old ape and pale-faced burly man were to die, they would be next. Even he did not stand a chance against a high-level fiend demon. Therefore, even though Su Zimo was killing ferociously, he was paying attention to the situation on the platform at all times. If he sensed that something was amiss, he would make use of the chaos to charge out with Monkey and the others. Both sides had yet to fight on the platform. Initially, Protector 1 was extremely confident. However, for some reason, his heart skipped a beat when he exchanged glances with the old ape's murky eyes earlier on. The other three protectors were clearly uneasy as well with uncertain expressions. Protector 1 did not move. Suddenly, Protector 1 felt frustrated as he sensed the chaotic battlefield below. Why weren't they dealt with just a few low-level fiend demons yet? Nothing seemed to be going smoothly today. You've waited for this moment for so long. Why aren't you attacking? Right then, the old ape spoke with a calm voice without any fluctuations. Hee. Protector 1 chuckled dryly. I've waited for this moment for so long. I'm in no hurry. Oh, the old ape nodded. If you're not attacking, I'm going to. Before his sentence was completed, the old ape stood up slowly. That single action of standing up released a domineering and terrifying aura that could suppress all demons that blanketed the skies above Ape Chatter Ridge instantly. Protector 1 glared at the old ape with widened eyes in disbelief. Although the old ape was old, his aura was still sharp and domineering. It was almost the same as when he was at his peak. You're hiding your strength? Protector 1's expression changed starkly as he uttered those three words with difficulty. The murkiness in the old ape's eyes had already vanished completely. The blood chi in his body surged and rumbled continuously. The two white brows of the old ape that drooped down moved slightly and were completely dyed red. They were scarlet and glistening. His blood chi was channeled to its limits and was already at the tip of his brows. There was no hint of twilight in his body at all with such rich blood chi. Grandpa, you're all right? The pale-faced burly man cheered in delight. Old fogey, you're truly scheming. You even managed to deceive your kin. Protector 1 grit his teeth with a venomous gaze. If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't have been able to see through your disguise. The old ape thumped his chest and roared with a torrential killing intent. Before his roar ended, the old ape strode forward and attacked. Chapter 841. The moment the old ape attacked, he enveloped the four protectors and his blood chi surged in a ferocious manner. His coarse, gigantic hand seemed like it could blot out the skies as it crushed down. Everyone, there's no way out for us. Protector 1 shrieked. If we retreat now, this old fogey will definitely not let us off. Let's join forces and kill him. The four protectors attacked at the same time to defend. Boom. There was a deafening sound. The high platform collapsed instantly. The four great protectors fell from the sky and transformed into enormous figures in midair. Among them, Protector 1 was an ancient remnant beast, the green-winged eagle. Innate divine power. Protector 1 did not test the waters and released his innate divine power right away. Flapping his massive wings, Protector 1 transformed into a streak of light and vanished before the old ape instantly, circling behind the latter and charging towards the pale-faced burly man. The pale-faced burly man was alarmed. Although he was one of the protectors, he had just advanced to become a high-level fiend demon not long ago, and his combat strength was far inferior to these fiend demons that had cultivated for thousands of years. The pale-faced burly man stomped, and an extremely ferocious power burst forth from his body as well. Boom! The pale-faced burly man raised his fist and punched viciously towards the incoming streak of light. The force was so strong that it caused the entire void to cave in. A cold laugh sounded from behind the pale-faced burly man. Not good. The pale-faced burly man's heart sank. Protector One's innate divine power was frightening, and his speed had already reached this level. The difference of a single move was the difference between life and death. The pale-faced burly man felt a sharp pain at the back of his head. If he was reluctant to part with his body at that moment, there was a high chance that his essence spirit would be destroyed. The only way to survive was for his essence spirit to leave his body and abandon his body. All of a sudden, the sharp pain at the back of his head vanished suddenly. Protector One's shriek sounded. Unknowingly, the old ape was already standing beside the pale-faced burly man and repelling Protector One with a single punch. The pale-faced burly man escaped death. Die, old fogey! The other three protectors charged forward and released their divine powers as well. You must have a death wish. The old ape's gaze intensified, and an incomparably strong power burst forth from his body. His innate ability exploded. Taking a deep breath of air, the old ape's arms thickened, and he threw out 3 consecutive punches that collided with the 3 protectors at almost the same time. 1 against 3. The sound of bones cracking rang out. The arm of a protector exploded from a single punch by the old ape, and blood gushed everywhere. His entire arm was crippled. The expressions of the other 2 protectors changed greatly as well. Their blood and chi surged in their bodies, causing them to spit out mouthfuls of blood. Just now, the old ape's abilities were clearly superior to the 3 protectors. A stream of light attacked. The old ape did not even look at it. It reached out its hand and grabbed at the void. Flowing light paused. The Great Guardian was forced to reveal himself. Protector One opened his mouth and spat out a dark light. It expanded against the wind and transformed into a dark spear that pierced towards the old ape's face. The 2 of them were extremely close to each other, and this move was extremely sudden. Although the old ape was old, its reaction was extremely fast. It made a prompt decision to let go of the spear and retreat, grabbing the spear in its hand. The Great Protector had already taken the opportunity to flee. Trying to escape? The old ape glared and grabbed the spear in his hands, tossing it in the direction of the Great Protector One. A flash of blood appeared in the voids. The Great Protector One dodged with all his might. However, his wings were still pierced by his own spear, and countless feathers fell. None of you will be able to escape today. The old ape strode forward and chased after them. When he saw that, Su Zimo was no longer worried. Initially, he wanted to charge out with Monkey and the others and escape this place as soon as possible if the situation was amiss. Now that he had witnessed it, the old ape's combat strength was indeed terrifying. He suppressed the internal strife with a flip of his palm. That was the capability of an overlord. That was the might of an overlord. In just more than 10 breaths, all 4 protectors were injured. By the looks of it, the 4 of them would not be able to last much longer. Relieved, Su Zimo's glabella shone, and he conjured hand seals repeatedly. With an overlord beside him, Su Zimo did not dare to use dermic arts of the immortals and Buddhas rashly. Furthermore, the dermic art that he released did not belong to the Purple Thunder Manual or Great Day Rulai Sutra. In the blink of an eye, the dermic art was completed. With Su Zimo as the center, an extremely strange dermic power spread out in the surroundings. A series of gray ripples appeared in the voids and rippled in all directions like water. The Een Spirit section of the Mystic Classic of the 12 Demon Kings of the Great Wilderness did not record any dermic arts and only had spirit refinement techniques. The Yang Spirit section had a dermic art and an Essence Spirit secret skill. According to the records, both of those secret skills were the most frightening killing techniques. Right now, Su Zimo was releasing that dermic art, Baron. The fiend demons that were charging over were enveloped by the gray ripples, and their speed turned extremely slow instantly, as though they were stuck in a swamp and could not break free. However, the demons did not feel any discomfort when the gray ripples swept past them. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. The Baron dermic art did not seem to have much power and could only restrict the movement and speed of cultivators. To begin with, Su Zimo was at the Een spirit realm, and it was slightly advanced for him to cultivate that dermic art. Furthermore, the dermic arts and essence spirit secret skills of the Yang spirit section had many ancient and mysterious runes that he could not understand and could not truly comprehend the essence of those two secret skills. He believed that this was definitely not the true power of Baron. Su Zimo swept his gaze and his expression changed suddenly. On the ground that was covered by the gray ripples, the spiritual herbs that were full of vitality were withering at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the flowers withered in an instant. This is, Su Zimo's pupils constricted. Suddenly, some of the fiend demons closest to him shrieked. "Not good, my lifespan is decreasing rapidly. 100 years in a single breath. What a fast speed. My lifespan is 60 years in a single breath. What is this demonic art?" A single breath and the lifespan of those fiend demons was reduced by 100 years, 60 years. Su Zimo's eyes lit up. That was the true power of Baron. Furthermore, the closer they were to him, the more their lifespan would be reduced. 100 years in a single breath was not obvious for mid-level fiend demons that had lifespans of thousands of years. However, the reduction in lifespan was continuous. As long as they did not break free from the range of Baron, their lifespan would decrease continuously. Furthermore, it was irreversible. Even if they managed to break free from the range of Baron, the 100 years of lifespan would be gone by then. What a frightening dermic art. Su Zimo could feel his heart thumping wildly. His cultivation realm was too low and he could not recognize the many ancient and mysterious runes in Baron. He could not unleash the true power of Baron. How terrifying would the dermic art be if he could comprehend the mysteries of Baron? 1,000 years in a single breath? If he could reach 1,000 years in a single breath, 5 breaths would be enough to kill a void reversion silently. Just as Su Zimo was pondering, a few exclamations sounded from the other side of the battlefield. "Ah, why is my lifespan decreasing? What are those gray ripples?" Su Zimo instinctively looked over and could not help but shudder. Unknowingly, the gray ripples had already extended to the platform and enveloped the protectors, the old ape and the pale-faced burly man. Those were high-level fiend demons that were equivalent to the Dharma Daojun of the human race. Their lifespan was decreasing as well. Even the Dharma Daojun could not defend against the power of Baron. Chapter 842. The power of Baron was the greatest. As the area expanded, it weakened accordingly. By the time the gray ripples reached the old ape and the others, the reduction in their lifespans was almost negligible. It might only reduce their lifespans by a few years in a single breath. However, a dermic art that could strip the lifespans of living beings and that even high-level fiend demons could not defend against was truly frightening. It was especially so for the old ape. Although his combat strength was still present and his blood chi was robust, he did not have much lifespan left and was extremely sensitive to the reduction of his lifespan. Just as the old ape was about to charge forward and kill Protector 1 and the other 3, his expression changed starkly as he leaped and escaped from the range of the gray ripples. The old ape glared at Su Zimo with a conflicted expression and endless shock in his eyes. This time round he was truly shocked. He had lived for thousands of years and was an overlord. What had he not seen before? Even with the betrayal of the 4 protectors around him, he was still unperturbed. However, this puny low-level fiend demon before him shocked him. If not for the fact that Su Zimo chose to help him right away, he would have thought that Su Zimo was sent by Protector 1 to deal with him. Although that dermic art did not pose a fatal threat to high-level fiend demons, however, the fact that it could affect high-level fiend demons that were 2 major cultivation realms above them and reduce their lifespans forcefully and unreasonably was frightening enough in itself. This was beyond the scope of ordinary dermic arts. When Su Zimo caught sight of the old ape's gaze, he was invigorated and snapped out of his stupor. With a single thought, the gray ripples vanished from Su Zimo's mind. The moment he put away Baron, he felt a little giddy and a sense of fatigue rose from the bottom of his heart. His scarlet-haired spirit dimmed significantly. Although the power of that dermic art was frightening, the drain on one's essence spirit was way too shocking as well. His cultivation realm was still not high enough. If he could cultivate to the yang spirit realm, this situation would be much better. Now that the strange gray ripples had vanished, the old ape heaved a sigh of relief and leaped into the air, reaching out to grab Protector 1 who was in midair. Protector 1 had just snapped out of his stupor and turned to flee hurriedly. Roar! The old ape opened his mouth and roared. His glabella shone and a golden beam of light shot towards the back of Protector 1's head. Essence Soul Secret Technique. The Great Guardian was also impressive. He also condensed his essence spirit immediately. An extremely sharp divine sense fluctuation burst out from his glabella and condensed into a green feather in midair. The green feather pierced through the air. In the blink of an eye, the golden light and the green feather collided. Without a sound. With just a slight pause, the green feather turned into nothingness. The golden light also scattered in the void, turning into golden light spots that filled the sky. Among them, there were still dozens of golden light spots that entered the back of Protector 1's head and surged into his consciousness, causing raging waves. The Great Guardian's primordial spirit was impacted and he cried out in pain. His body swayed and he almost fell from the sky. The aura of death forced him to calm down. He endured the pain and continued to flee. However, in that split second of delay, the old ape had already caught up. Boom! The gigantic palm pressed down with terrifying momentum. It was like a falling meteor, and a burst of explosive sounds could be heard from the surroundings. The Great Guardian slapped his storage bag and summoned another Dharma artifact. Rise! The Great Guardian bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a stream of essence blood onto the Dharma artifact. The Dharma artifact expanded rapidly and looked like the bone of a demon beast. It was incomparably tough and shielded the Great Guardian's head. Bang! The palm fell and collided heavily against the bone. Snap! The bone exploded. The Great Guardian spat out a mouthful of blood as though he was struck by lightning. The old ape strode forward and reached out with his massive palm once more, grabbing the Great Guardian's head and squeezing. Exclamation point! The Great Guardian's head exploded like a watermelon as blood filled the air. The essence spirit was destroyed. A high-level fiend demon was dead. The old ape turned around and chased after the remaining 3 people. It was too fast. Although they were both high-level fiend demons, the Great Guardian could not retaliate at all against the old ape who seemed to be in his twilight years. Within a few punches and kicks, his head was crushed. When the Great Guardian died, of the remaining 3 protectors, one was severely injured and had just gotten up while the other was held back by the pale-faced burly man. The last one did not manage to escape for long before the old ape caught up to him. When he saw that, Su Zimo knew that the battle was over. The demons realized that as well and some of them stopped, some fled while some of them helped Su Zimo's side. The situation was completely reversed. Su Zimo had already stopped. Everything that happened here had nothing to do with him anymore. He stood on the spot and recalled the feeling of releasing Baron repeatedly in his mind. He comprehended and deduced repeatedly. After an unknown period of time, the sounds of killing gradually died down. Territorial Lord of Howling Moon Mountain, what's your name? A voice sounded beside his ears, but Su Zimo did not seem to have heard it. Solitary Cloud had to nudge him gently before he snapped back to his senses and looked around. The battle was over. The surrounding ground was filled with corpses and fresh blood. It was a tragic sight. Many fiend demons were cleaning up the battlefield. The old ape stood not far ahead with a few corpses beside his feet. By the looks of it, they were the fallen protectors. The one who asked was the pale-faced burly man beside the old ape. My name is Mo, Su Zimo replied. What's your true form? Why can't I tell? The pale-faced burly man sized up Su Zimo brazenly and asked. Su Zimo remained silent. He could not answer that question. When he saw that Su Zimo was silent, the pale-faced burly man frowned and was about to fly into a rage when the old ape beside him coughed gently. Ling, there's no need to ask. The old ape waved it off and looked at Su Zimo meaningfully. I believe that your true form is definitely extraordinary if you can get a WM to submit to you willingly. Su Zimo smiled and did not reply. At the side, Ling Hu rolled his eyes at the pale-faced burly man and sent a voice transmission secretly. How dare you call yourself Ling when you look so burly? How disgusting! Come forward, the old ape beckoned. Su Zimo and the others walked over. The old ape swept his gaze across Su Zimo and the others before landing on Monkey's shoulder. Can you let me take a look at the rod on your shoulder? Ling Hu and the others tensed up instantly. Could this old man have taken a liking to Brother Monkey's 1,000 caddy rod? Monkey did not even think as he handed it over. Although he was arrogant, he had principles as well. He would respect others tenfold if they showed him some respect. Even though the old ape was the overlord of a region, he sounded as though he was discussing with Monkey earlier on. That alone gave Monkey a good impression of him. The old ape received the rod and sized it up for a long time. During that period of time, he would glance at Monkey occasionally and nod from time to time, saying, very good, very good. Everyone was confused when they heard that. They did not know if the old ape was referring to Monkey or 1,000 caddy rod. For some reason, Monkey felt goosebumps from the old ape's gaze. Others might not be able to sense it, but Monkey had a feeling that the old ape's gaze seemed to imply something else. This rod is not bad. The old ape returned 1,000 caddy to Monkey and said with a benevolent smile, you're of the same race as Ling. If you have any doubts about your cultivation, you can ask her at any time. You can get closer in the future. When they heard that, the expressions of Su Zimo and the others turned extremely strange. Chapter 843. Monkey's expression froze. Intimate? He did not know if he had heard wrongly or if the old ape had misspoken. What was there to be intimate with that pale-faced burly man? Monkey felt a chill run down his spine the moment he thought about it. Then, a scene that made everyone's hair stand on end happened. A rare blush appeared on the pale-faced burly man's face as he stomped his feet gently and shook the old ape's arm, chiding, Grandpa, what are you saying? I don't want it. The expressions of Su Zimo and the others changed as they felt their stomachs churning as though they were about to vomit something. But, unable to hold it in any longer, Ling Hu turned around and vomited all over the ground with a pale face. Ling Hu looked at the pale-faced burly man who was enraged and murderous and waved his hands repeatedly. Sorry, I couldn't hold it in. If you can't hold it in, eat it back. The pale-faced burly man gritted his teeth and said fiercely. But when Ling Hu heard that, he cursed internally, this is even more King disgusting. He turned around and vomited all over the ground again. The pale-faced burly man raised his brows and was about to fly into a rage again. Ling Hu's expression changed starkly as he begged bitterly, Big brother, don't do this. I really can't take it. Enraged, the pale-faced burly man charged forward, wanting to beat Ling Hu up. When Ling Hu saw that the situation was bad, he flashed and hid behind Monkey hurriedly. Big brother, you should be closer to Brother Monkey. You're from the same race. Monkey shuddered in fear as well. Normally, he did not respect heaven and earth or fear ghosts and gods. But now, he was flustered by the old ape's strange words. The old ape coughed gently and chuckled, saying unhurriedly, there might be some misunderstanding here. It's a huge misunderstanding. Ling Hu muttered. Monkey nodded hurriedly. For the first time, he felt that Ling Hu was right. He felt that Ling Hu was very cute. He even secretly wondered if he should treat Ling Hu better in the future. The old ape pulled the pale-faced man to its side and explained, let me reintroduce you. This is Yuan Ling, my granddaughter. She's a little stubborn, but she's a woman. Everyone's jaws dropped as they were instantly petrified. You're female? Ling Hu's jaw almost dropped to the ground as he blurted out. Yuan Ling was fuming with anger. She rushed forward and dragged Ling Hu out, grabbed him by the legs, and slammed him onto the ground. Su Zimo was about to make a move. However, he sensed that although Yuan Ling was angry, she had a sense of propriety and didn't really hurt Ling Hu's body. Who asked you to vomit? I'll make you vomit. Yuan Ling was so angry that she repeatedly muttered. Boom, boom, boom. In the blink of an eye, a huge pit was formed on the ground. Ling Hu was sprawled on all fours in the pit. His face was swollen and his eyes were filled with tears as he murmured innocently, "What has this got to do with me? Why did you hit me?" Ching Ching and Little Fox were already convulsing with laughter. Yuan Ling was still fuming as she returned to the old ape's side and said angrily, "Grandpa, I know what you mean. However, I want to make a decision for this matter myself." Yuan Ling glanced sideways at Monkey, who was hiding at the side, and pouted her lips in disdain. "How can a low-level fiend demon be worthy of me? I'm a high-level fiend demon. Even if you try to suck up to me, I won't be interested in you." Initially, Monkey wanted to avoid her. However, he was instantly displeased when he heard that. "So what if you're a high-level fiend demon?" Monkey sneered. "I've only cultivated for slightly more than 100 years. If I were to live to your age, I would have become a mighty demon long ago." "Who doesn't know how to brag?" Yuan Ling sneered as well. "If you were to live to my age, I would be able to beat you into a pig's head with ease." The expressions of Su Zimo and the others turned odd once more when they saw the two of them quarrel. The old ape stood at the side and smiled without saying anything in satisfaction. Yuan Ling pointed at Monkey and said word by word, "Also, you had better not provoke me. If you do, I can beat you up right now." Monkey had a wild nature and could not stand being threatened by others. Monkey rolled up his arms and shouted, "How arrogant! Come, let's have a spar right now. What are you being so arrogant for? You're asking for a beating." Yuan Ling stifled a laugh. "Come with me. Let's go somewhere else. I'll save you some face." With that said, Yuan Ling led the way. Monkey wanted to follow with his hot-bloodedness. Ling Hu crawled out of the pit hurriedly and grabbed Monkey's arm, reminding, "Brother Monkey, don't be rash. She's tall, it's fine. Wait for me to take revenge." The monkey waved his hand heroically and followed Yuan Ling into a pitch-black cave. Soon they were out of sight. Su Zimo could not help but laugh when he saw that farce. Although the old ape praised him from time to time, he had long realized that the old ape was truly impressed with Monkey. Su Zimo did not know the exact reason. However, it was definitely not because they were of the same race. Su Zimo guessed that it might have something to do with Monkey's bloodline. Monkey's bloodline was extremely strong. Among the 7 sworn brothers, apart from him and Night Spirit, Monkey was the only one. Furthermore, it was strange that Dai Yu imparted the Tendon's transformation section of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness to Monkey. Bang, bang, bang. Not far away, the sound of collisions could be heard from the cave. It sounded extremely intense. However, it calmed down before long. Immediately after, Yuan Ling walked out leisurely. Her expression was normal and her aura was stable. Her clothes were neat and tidy as she puffed her chest. Without even looking at everyone, she came to the old ape's side and said, "Grandpa, let's go." The old ape smiled and looked at Su Zimo. "You guys can stay in Ape Chatter Ridge for a period of time. There's no hurry. I'll bring you guys to the 1,000-year Blood Sea 7 days later to participate in the 1,000 Demon Meet." "Thank you, Overlord." Su Zimo and the others thanked him with cupped fists. Right then, another figure walked out of the cave. Monkey staggered over and limped with a bruised face. It was truly beaten into a pig's head and looked extremely miserable. Everything had its weakness. It was rare to see Monkey suffer, and Ling Hu and the others found it amusing when they saw the injuries on Monkey's face. Monkey sensed everyone's gazes and coughed lightly, saying, "As you guys expected, I fought a huge battle with that little girl and it ended in a draw." Ching Ching and Little Fox were dumbfounded. Ling Hu rolled his eyes and nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. "That's considered a draw?" The spirit tiger chuckled gloatingly. "Brother Monkey, don't be so stubborn. You even wanted to seek revenge for me and got beaten up by her? Ha!" Monkey's face darkened. Ling Hu did not sense any killing intent and lamented, Actually, we're in the same boat. Although I was beaten into a pig's head, it's fortunate that I had you by my side. Eh? Why are you hitting me again? Before Ling Hu could finish, Monkey lifted Ling Hu and slammed him into the ground once more. Bang, bang, bang. Another huge pit appeared on the ground. Ling Hu collapsed inside with tears streaming down his face in despair. Everyone burst into laughter. At this moment, stars suddenly appeared in the distant sky. They kept moving, and their trajectories were extremely chaotic. It was as though a pair of invisible hands were manipulating the stars in the firmaments. Su Zimo retracted his smile and frowned slightly, murmuring softly, "Stars in daytime?" Chapter 844. The old ape had not gone far and noticed that as well. He paused in his tracks and raised his head with a grim expression. At that moment, night had long passed and the firmaments were bright. However, numerous ancient and boundless stars had appeared in the distant sky, and they flickered between brightness and dimness. The constellations were chaotic, and there was no trace of them to be found. "Grandpa, what's going on?" Yuan Ling had only cultivated for a short period of time and had not seen such a strange sight before. She could not help but ask. "I've never seen a universal phenomenon as such before as well." The old ape shook his head and said slowly, "I'm guessing that something major must have happened beneath the firmaments. In fact, it might even cause the stars to appear in daytime and the constellations to be chaotic." "What could it be?" Yuan Linger asked. "It's hard to say," the old ape replied. "It might be the birth of some treasure or a secret skill. Or perhaps, a grand demon's attainment of the Tao startled the world. In fact, the birth or death of some peerless experts might even cause universal phenomenons. I heard that an emperor of Fa monastery died in the catastrophe of the North region 10,000 years ago. Back then, a universal phenomenon was triggered. Heaven and earth mourned the death of an emperor. The old ape lamented. It said that many Buddhas appeared that day and flowers fell from the skies. Golden lotuses sprouted from the ground and Sanskrit reverberated through the world for a long time." Yuan Ling was shocked. The old ape lamented, "I have no regrets in my life after cultivating to this realm where I'm respected by all races." A moment later, the old ape stared at the stars in the firmaments for a while more and frowned. "Judging from the position of the firmaments, it seems to be close to the 1,000-year blood sea. Could the two of them be related?" 7 days later. Ape Chatter Ridge. There were about 1,000 mid-level fiend demons gathered, and all of them were mid-level fiend demons. Su Zimo and the others were among them as well. Although most of them were low-level fiend demons and did not fit in with their surroundings, the demons did not underestimate them at all. The memories of the battle 7 days ago were still fresh in the demons' minds. They looked at the scarlet-haired man at the front with a hint of wariness in their eyes. Before long, the old ape appeared with Yuan Ling. "Let's go." The old ape did not waste time and his glabella shone, releasing a massive spirit consciousness. Waving his sleeves, a gigantic black cloud appeared before him. Dark clouds spread. In the blink of an eye, the black cloud enveloped all the demons. "Relax your minds, there's no need to resist." The old ape's voice sounded. Immediately after, the demons felt their bodies lighten and soared into the air. In the blink of an eye, they had already left Ape Chatter Ridge and sped towards the distant horizon. The wind howled in their ears. At this speed, the demons would arrive at their destination in less than 2 to 3 days. Su Zimo nodded secretly. The methods of an overlord were indeed powerful. A black cloud carrying over 1,000 fiendish demons and maintaining such a terrifying speed. How much magic power did it require? As Su Zimo was pondering, the old ape's voice echoed in his mind. It was the old ape speaking to him through divine sense. "Mo, I believe you are participating in the 1,000 demon meet this time around to fight for a spot in the 1,000-year blood sea, right?" Su Zimo replied with a voice transmission, "Of course." The 7 overlords were gathered at the 1,000 demon meet, and he had many cultivation methods that were inconvenient for him to use. However, he believed that given his current strength, he could take on most mid-level fiendish demons even without using his black-haired essence spirit. At the very least, Su Zimo was confident that he could suppress everything in melee combat with his physique. That's probably going to be difficult, the old ape said. I've witnessed your methods before. You have a strong physique and are even more frightening in melee combat. In a few words, the old ape pointed out Su Zimo's strengths. Immediately after, the old ape changed the topic. However, there are only 10 spots in the 1,000-year Blood Sea. You'll have to pass 2 trials if you want to fight for one of them. You won't be able to pass the first trial. Su Zimo asked, what's the first trial? Simply put, the first trial tests the strength of your essence spirit, the old ape explained. The opportunity to cultivate in the Blood Sea is rare and occurs once every 1,000 years. Furthermore, there are only 10 spots each time. Therefore, we will select the strongest mid-level fiendish demons to enter and cultivate. That's the only way we can groom a high-level fiendish demon. When he heard that, Su Zimo frowned slightly and asked, how do we compare the strength of our essence spirits? It can't be a fight between essence spirits, right? A fight between essence spirits was the most dangerous. Any bit of carelessness could lead to death. If one's essence spirit was damaged in the process of fighting for a spot, the losses would outweigh the gains and no fiendish demon would dare to attempt it easily. There's no need for that, the old ape shook his head. The comparison of the strength of one's essence spirit is simple, the range of one's spirit consciousness. When he heard that, Su Zimo was slightly stunned. The range of a low-level fiendish demon's spirit consciousness starts at 5 kilometers and the limit is 50 kilometers. However, the range of a mid-level fiendish demon's spirit consciousness starts at 50 kilometers and can reach 500 kilometers at the limit. The old ape said, you're a low-level fiendish demon and haven't cultivated to the peak. Even if you're a peak low-level fiendish demon, your spirit consciousness won't exceed 50 kilometers. However, you must know that the territorial lords fighting for the spots to cultivate in the Blood Sea are all mid-level fiendish demons. You won't be able to win against them for this alone. Su Zimo smiled and replied indifferently, that might not be the case. The old ape exclaimed softly. He could tell what Su Zimo was implying. After a moment of silence, he did not continue asking and merely lamented, it's truly an anomaly for a low-level fiendish demon to be a territorial lord. 3 days later, although Su Zimo passed through the thick black clouds, he could still sense a faint stench of blood. Furthermore, the speed of the black clouds was gradually slowing down as well. He realized that they had arrived at the 1,000-year Blood Sea. Before long, the demons sensed the black clouds fading gradually and descended. They regained their vision and gazed around. Beneath them was a vast plain that stretched as far as the eye could see. Many fiendish demons were gathered on the plain and most of them were in human form. However, all of them had rumbling demonic chi and a torrential malevolent aura. The crowd below was bustling and it was extremely lively. The most eye-catching thing was the central region of the plain. It was incomparably scarlet. The 1,000-year Blood Sea. The Blood Sea was not a sea, but a lake. However, the lake was way too large and it was difficult to see from the ground. The demons had to look down from midair to be able to see the entirety of the Blood Sea. Su Zimo merely took a single glance at the Blood Sea and his expression changed all of a sudden. Right at that moment, ripples appeared on the Blood Sea. The ripples seemed to have transformed into a human face within the Blood Sea. It was a blood-colored human face. Furthermore, the blood-colored human face seemed to be smiling in a sinister and frightening manner. Pissed! Su Zimo gasped and shuddered. He focused his gaze once more and the ripples on the Blood Sea had already disappeared. The surface of the sea was calm and the blood-colored human face was gone. Su Zimo's face was slightly pale as he stared at the Blood Sea for a long time. The blood-colored human face did not appear either. It was as though just now was merely a figment of his imagination. Su Zimo shook his head and let out a long breath before descending with the demons. Chapter 845. There were only slightly more than 1,000 fiend demons from Ape Chatter Ridge. However, there were already more than 10,000 fiend demons gathered on the plains. Furthermore, the number was still increasing. Demons were gathering at the 1,000-demon meet. It was not only the fiend demons of the various territories, even some fiend demons without factions wanted to join in the fun. The plains below were clearly divided into 7 distinct regions surrounding the 1,000-year Blood Sea. The old ape led the demons and landed in one of the regions. The moment the demons landed, a strange laughter sounded from the side. Not far away, a skinny old man with a yellow face and a goatee crossed his arms and said in an eccentric manner, "Old man Yuan, you're still alive?" The goatee was surrounded by demons like stars surrounding the moon. Furthermore, although the goatee looked skinny, the aura he exuded was extremely sharp and domineering. "Humph!" The old ape glared and sneered, "Old goat, why would I leave before you when you're not dead yet?" "That's the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak." In the crowd, Yuan Ling whispered to Monkey, "That old goat has always been on bad terms with Grandpa." The two of them fought twice and the old goat lost both times. Monkey and Yuan Ling fought every single day in Ape Chatter Ridge. However, the two of them seemed to have gotten much closer. Yuan Ling would take the initiative to tell Monkey about such things but not Su Zimo and the others. "That old monkey is really energetic." Not far away, a voice sounded diagonally, "I heard that there was an internal conflict in Ape Chatter Ridge a few days ago, but that old monkey suppressed it with a few punches and kicks." The person who spoke was dressed in black robes and had a well-proportioned figure. Seated on a high seat, his gaze was cold and his lips were pursed tightly. He exuded a ferocious aura from head to toe. "That's the overlord of Silver Moon Valley." Yuan Ling whispered, "That's an ancient remnant beast, the Silver Moon Wolf." "From what the two of you have said, Brother Yuan is truly vigorous despite his age." In the area next to the Silver Moon Valley, a beautiful woman wearing a colorful gauze said coquettishly, "Even I am a little tempted." Needless to say, anyone who was qualified to speak at this moment was an overlord. "Don't look at him." Yuan Ling glared at the monkey and said, "This woman is the overlord of Thousand Snake Island, the most vicious. Be careful, if you look at her, she might dig out your eyeballs." Monkey pouted in disdain. When the old ape heard the overlord of Thousand Snake Island's words, he merely smiled faintly. "Don't call me brother. I'm old enough to be your grandfather. Brother Yuan is so bad, taking advantage of me." The Thousand Snake Island's overlord pouted coquettishly, but a cold glint flashed across her eyes. This woman looked delicate and weak, but no one dared to underestimate her. To be able to become an overlord, one's hands were stained with blood, and one's feet stepped on countless corpses. Currently, 4 out of the 7 great rulers had arrived. Su Zimo and the others looked ordinary in the crowd of demons and did not attract much attention. At this moment, a golden cloud floated over from the distant sky. If one were to look at it carefully, they would notice that there seemed to be tiny flames burning on the golden cloud. In the blink of an eye, the golden clouds dispersed. Thousands of fiend demons descended. Their leader was a man draped in golden battle armor. He was tall and muscular with a pair of bull horns on his head, striding over in a majestic manner. "Ha!" The person who arrived roared in laughter. "Old ape, you're early this time round. Let's spar when we're free." Ling Hu whispered, "Why is there another opponent? Our overlord has so many enemies." "Don't spout nonsense." Yuan Ling said, "This is the overlord of Golden Flames Mountain. He's the closest to Grandpa." The old ape smiled bitterly. "Forget it, I'm not going to spar with you at my age." "Cuckoo." Suddenly, a strange sound echoed from the distant horizon. Immediately after, a resplendent glow filled the skies. Countless petals scattered and a fragrance filled the air. A large group of fiend demons tore through the air on auspicious clouds. In the middle of the room was a luxurious sedan. Inside the sedan was a fat man with a big belly and fat intestines. Around him, dozens of young women followed with baskets of flowers that scattered petals from time to time. Within the carriage, there were even women massaging the fatty's legs and arms and feeding him wine and spirit fruits. They were extremely happy. "This fatty sure knows how to enjoy himself," the overlord of Golden Flames Mountain sneered. However, no matter how he tries to hide it, he can't hide the stench on his body. That's the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley. His true form is a jade-eyed toad, Yuan Linger said. A jade-eyed toad, a pure-blooded ferocious beast. Its eyes were jade green and its body was venomous. Anyone who came into contact with it would die, and it could devour all living beings. It would even dare to eat the corpse of a fallen dragon. 6 of the 7 overlords had appeared. The demons did not have to wait for long before a hazy mist appeared in the distance. The mist was extremely powerful, and even the demons could not detect it with their spirit consciousnesses. When the mist came close, fiendish demons walked out one after another. Their leader had a cold expression and he wore pitch-black armor. Even his face was covered, revealing only his eyes. His eyes were cold and ferocious. It was shuddering. The Overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp had arrived. The true form of the Overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp was an ancient gigantic crocodile. The 7 overlords of Ape Chatter Ridge, Levitating Goat Peak, Golden Flames Mountain, Vermilion Cloud Valley, Silver Moon Valley, Thousand Snake Island and Confusion Mist Swamp were gathered. A massive spirit consciousness fluctuation reverberated through the air, but there was no sound. Before long, the 7 overlords left their original spots one after another and gathered together to discuss something. Su Zimo guessed that there was a high chance that it had something to do with the stars in daytime. Everyone from Ape Chatter Ridge, long time no see. Right then, a few fiend demons from Levitating Goat Peak, Silver Moon Valley and Thousand Snake Island walked over with hostile expressions and provocative gazes. More than half of the 10 great territorial lords have changed after 1,000 years? A skinny man from Levitating Goat Peak surveyed his surroundings and raised his brow, asking, could Ing Li and the others have already advanced to high-level fiend demons? There's also a possibility that they've cultivated to the grand demon realm. Haha. The fiend demons from Silver Moon Valley and Thousand Snake Island roared in laughter. They had long heard that there was internal strife in Ape Chatter Ridge where 4 of the 5 protectors were killed and many mid-level fiend demons were injured. The losses were immense. The reason why they were here was to mock Ape Chatter Ridge. Not really, a fiend demon from Ape Chatter Ridge replied honestly. Ing Li and the others rebelled and were killed. Although a few of the 10 great territorial lords are dead, there will naturally be replacements. Replacements? The skinny man from Levitating Goat Peak swept his gaze across the demons of Ape Chatter Ridge and could not help but burst into laughter. He pointed to Su Zimo's group and said, don't tell me that the 10 great territorial lords of Ape Chatter Ridge are going to be replacements with these few low-level fiend demons? Ha! The demons of Silver Moon Valley and Levitating Goat Peak laughed even harder. Only low-level fiend demons could enter this place for the 1,000 demon meet this time round. However, low-level fiend demons could only serve as servants and serve tea. The dozens of young girls beside the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley were low-level fiend demons. The fiend demons of Ape Chatter Ridge had odd expressions when they saw the demons of Levitating Goat Peak pointing at Su Zimo. Chapter 846. The Overlord of Silver Moon Valley said slowly, everyone, what do you guys think about the appearance of a universal phenomenon in Thousand Demon Valley? The Overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley chuckled. The other overlords exchanged glances with calm expressions and did not say anything. The 7 overlords had all lived for thousands of years. Even if they had their own thoughts, they would not easily let others see through them. Silver Moon, what do you mean by that? The Overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp asked with an indifferent expression with a firm voice. The Overlord of Silver Moon Valley smiled gently. The appearance of stars in daytime could be the reappearance of an ancient ruin or the opening of a secret ground. In any case, this is a huge matter for Thousand Demon Valley. Although we usually fight amongst ourselves, there's no harm for us to put aside our past grudges and join forces to investigate if an ancient ruin or secret ground opens. Of course, the Overlord of Thousand Snake Island smiled coquettishly. I agree. The Overlord of Golden Flames Mountain sneered internally and cursed for hypocrisy before asking loudly, if only a single utmost treasure appears, who will it belong to? A cold glint flashed through the eyes of the 7 overlords. At that time, we'll have to rely on our own capabilities. The overlord of levitating Goat Peak said coldly. Actually, at the end of the day, even if everyone were to join forces, they would all have their own agendas and were wary of one another. If any utmost treasure were to appear, there would definitely be a bloodbath. Right then, as though he sensed something, the old ape turned around. There seemed to be some trouble over at the demons of Ape Chatter Ridge. A few fiend demons of levitating Goat Peak, Silver Moon Valley and Thousand Snake Island were discussing something with the demons of Ape Chatter Ridge with mocking expressions. Old Man Yuan, let's not interfere in the matters of the younger generation. Let them do as they please, the overlord of levitating Goat Peak smirked and said with a fake smile. That's right, the overlord of Thousand Snake Island added coquettishly, this is the Thousand Demon Meet. It's normal even if there are conflicts between the juniors under us. As overlords, there's no need for us to interfere. The old ape asked with a strange expression, are you sure we don't have to stop them? Brother Yuan, let's continue chatting. There's no need to interfere in the conflicts between the juniors, the overlord of Silver Moon Valley chuckled. Oh, the old ape nodded without changing his expression. The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain had the best relationship with the old ape. He knew that Ape Chatter Ridge had suffered great losses in this internal strife. More than half of the 10 territorial lords had died. Are you sure you're all right? The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain asked telepathically, why don't I ask a few of my lords to help you? No need. The old macaque chuckled. We don't know who's going to be anxious first. Hey! The fiend demon of levitating Goat Peak had a haughty expression as he pointed at Su Zimo's nose and hollered, low-level fiend demons, don't stand here and be an eyesore. Get lost. Su Zimo's expression remained unchanged. There was no need for him to make an appearance in such a matter. The 3 fiend demons before him were not worth his time. You better get the hell away from me. Solitary Cloud stood at the side and remarked coldly. The fiend demon of levitating Goat Peak narrowed his gaze and scanned Solitary Cloud with his spirit consciousness before saying in an eccentric manner, it's a W. You want to stand up for someone? How dare a mere goat spirit act so arrogantly? Get lost. Solitary Cloud's gaze was cold, and he exuded a chilling killing intent as he retorted, a WRM that has cultivated for less than 1,000 years is no different from a snake. You must have a death wish. The eyes of the fiend demon of levitating Goat Peak shone brightly and he attacked without hesitation. There was naturally a reason why he dared to challenge Solitary Cloud Peak. He was not a nobody in levitating Goat Peak and was one of the 10 territorial lords. Although he was ranked at the bottom, he was not someone ordinary fiend demons could match up against. He could tell that Solitary Cloud had cultivated for less than 1,000 years. That was the reason why he dared to attack directly. Solitary Cloud harumphed coldly and strode forward when the fiend demon of levitating Goat Peak threw a punch. His blood chi surged and he threw a punch as well. Bang! The fiend demon of levitating Goat Peak shuddered and staggered 3 steps back with a shocked expression. Although Solitary Cloud was strong 100 years ago, he was definitely not a match for the 10 territorial lords. However, the 100 years of cultivation by Su Zimo's side had been of great help to him. The fiend demon of levitating Goat Peak advanced once more and his pitch-black sleeves fluttered. 2 cold glints of light shot out and pierced towards Solitary Cloud's face. Those were 2 spears that were extremely fast. Solitary Cloud opened his mouth and spat out his WM bone scissors. His spirit consciousness moved and dermic powers surged, causing the WM bone scissors to expand rapidly and cut towards the 2 incoming spears. 2 Ws soared into the air. Snip. The WM bone scissors sliced down and sliced the 2 spears into 4. The 4 spears fell and their bodies dimmed. They were completely crippled by the WM bone scissors. How dare you destroy my dermic weapons? The fiend demon of levitating Goat Peak was enraged and his glabella shone. 2 cold glints of light floated out and expanded rapidly in midair. Just now, the 2 spears were merely his ordinary dermic weapons. But now, the fiend demon of levitating Goat Peak had summoned his destiny dermic weapon, a pair of scythes that shone with silver light. The blades were filled with fine spikes and had a menacing aura. Solitary Cloud sneered, "Destiny Dermic weapon? How dare you embarrass yourself with it? Cut it." Solitary Cloud controlled the WRM bone scissors and 2Ws soared into the air, roaring into the skies. White light shone brightly and coiled around the pair of sides like two blinding white chains. Sniff, sniff. The WM bone scissors sliced thrice. The pair of sides snapped with a single sound. The expression of the fiend demon of levitating goat peak changed starkly as he spat out a mouthful of blood. He glared at Solitary Cloud with a venomous gaze. His destiny dermic weapon was destroyed and his spirit was connected to it. He was severely injured as well. He had refined that dermic weapon for more than 2,000 years. Now that it was destroyed, it was equivalent to more than 2,000 years of effort being wasted. That was a huge blow. Back in the Battle of Howling Moon Mountain, the WRM bone scissors were injured by the bronze square tripod. Later on, it was refined by Su Zimo with the secret skill of the Een Spirit section and was healed a long time ago. It was even stronger than before. How ruthless! The fiend demon of Silver Moon Valley had a grim expression and said deeply, "I'll take you on." Solitary Cloud swept his gaze to the fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island at the side and sneered, "The two of you can come at me together. It'll save you the trouble of scheming to hurt me in the dark, woman." The fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island was not angry that her intentions were exposed and merely smiled brightly. "I'll gladly oblige then." "Brazen," the fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak said hatefully. Solitary Cloud had always been brazen and arrogant to begin with. It was only after he submitted to Su Zimo 100 years ago and followed the ladder that he restrained himself. If he was against anyone else, his true nature would be revealed. As a WM, he had the right to be brazen as well. "Ha!" Solitary Cloud burst into laughter. "Seems like you're indignant as well. I'll count you in. I'll take all of you on. All right, don't regret it." The fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak growled deeply and demonic chi surged from his body. His mind went wild and in the blink of an eye, he reverted to his true form. On the other side, the fiend demon of Silver Moon Valley let out a roar and reverted to his true form as well. The fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island stuck out her tongue gently. In the blink of an eye, her tongue turned into a snake that hissed. The three fiend demons did not dare to be careless and were prepared to revert to their true forms for an all-out fight. Chapter 847. Look, there's a fight over there. He's already reverted to his true form. Why is there such a huge commotion? What's going on? The territorial lords of Silver Moon Valley, Levitating Goat Peak, and Thousand Snake Island came to challenge him. A WM of Ape Chatter Ridge accepted the challenge and both sides fought. The commotion at Ape Chatter Ridge had already attracted the attention of the demons on the plains. What's the background of that W? He can take on 3 people single-handedly? I don't know. I've never seen him before. He must be one of the newly conferred territorial lords of Ape Chatter Ridge, right? The demons discussed fervently. On the side of Levitating Goat Peak, a gray-haired man assumed a lotus position at the front of the mid-level fiend demons. His face was scrawny as he glared coldly at the battlefield not far away. "Young master, the WM of Ape Chatter Ridge might be a match for you." The gray-haired man pouted his lips and said in disdain, "This WRM's Tao is still shallow and there's nothing to fear. He'll only be qualified to fight me if he cultivates for another 100 years or so." In the direction of Silver Moon Valley. "Sir, this WM doesn't seem easy to deal with." A silver-robed man stood at the front of the territorial lords with a cold expression as a fiend demon behind him whispered. "It's fine," the silver-robed man waved it off. "If they still can't win, I'll take action personally to subdue this WM. If he refuses to submit, don't blame me for crippling him." In front of Thousand Snake Island. A woman with heavy makeup licked her lips and looked at the WM soaring in midair with a cold glint in her eyes. "I wonder how the flesh of a WM tastes like?" The woman in makeup murmured softly. A storm raged on the battlefield. Solitary Cloud did not underestimate the three territorial lords and reverted to his true form. His slender and muscular body coiled in the voids. His body was covered in dense scales that had already turned from gray to slightly white and shone with a crystalline glow. A pair of sharp claws protruded from his abdomen. The most eye-catching thing was the small bump that protruded from the center of Solitary Cloud's glabella. 100 years ago, the bump was not obvious. But now, the bump was distinguishable with a single glance. When the bump matured and broke through the WRM's skin and grew into a true horn, it would signify a complete metamorphosis. The WIRM was about to transform into a dragon. Roar! Solitary Cloud roared and his blood chi surged majestically. The unique bloodline of pure-blooded ferocious beasts had a clear suppression against the fiend demons of Levitating Goat Peak, Thousand Snake Island and Silver Moon Valley. Kill! The three fiendish demons roared furiously. The fiend demon of Silver Moon Valley summoned a silver beam of light that flashed in midair and slashed towards Solitary Cloud's neck at an extremely fast speed. This dermic artifact was refined from the scales of a great ancient demon. Its edges were incomparably sharp and could cut through gold and jade. It could even cut through divine weapons. Bush. The fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island opened her mouth and spat out a dense cluster of green poisonous needles towards Solitary Cloud. The Levitating Goat Peak fiendish demon took a deep breath. Although his destiny dermic weapon was shattered, he still had other dermic weapons in his storage bag. The fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak summoned another saber that emitted an extremely chilling aura. It tore through the air and slashed towards Solitary Cloud. Instantly, the three fiendish demons attacked at the same time. Cut it! Solitary Cloud was fearless and controlled the WM bone scissors to slice forward viciously. Crack! The saber of the fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak was cut apart once more. Rumble! Boom! Boom! Solitary Cloud's glabella shone and released a shocking dermic art. Apocalyptic torrent appeared beneath him and surged forward with a frightening might. The three fiendish demons were shocked. This torrent truly had the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. Although the poisonous needles of the fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island were powerful, they were weak and scattered in all directions against the torrent. The circular disc of the fiend demon of Silver Moon Valley tore through the torrent and slashed Solitary Cloud's body. Solitary Cloud tried his best to dodge, but he was still too slow. A bloody wound appeared on his body. Thankfully, his physique was strong and his blood chi was robust. The defensive power of his scales was extremely frightening as well. Otherwise, Solitary Cloud would have been sliced into two by that attack. You have a death wish? Although Solitary Cloud was injured, the three fiendish demons were fighting against the torrent with all their might and could not break free for the time being. Solitary Cloud dove into the torrent and vanished instantly. The WM race specialized in controlling water and could manipulate clouds and rain. After entering the torrent, his speed was even faster and he arrived before the fiend demon of Silver Moon Valley in the blink of an eye, swinging his tail viciously. The body of the fiend demon of Silver Moon Valley was sent flying. His chest caved in and his robes were torn as his flesh was mangled in an incomparably tragic manner. There was clearly an abnormal fluctuation in the torrent. Solitary Cloud had sensed it long ago. Not far away, the massive body of the fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak went against the torrent and stabbed towards Solitary Cloud with a pair of sharp horns. Exclamation point! Solitary Cloud leaped into the air and extended his claws that shone with a cold glint as he scratched the spine of the fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak. Blood gushed out. Solitary Cloud grabbed the spine of the fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak and pulled him away from the torrent, tossing him to the ground casually. It would be difficult for him to recover from that severe injury without dozens of years. Solitary Cloud tilted his head and dodged the incoming bite of the fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island. Turning his head, he bit down on the waist of the fiend demon. With that, Solitary Cloud snapped the fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island. The fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island shrieked. Fresh blood spewed out with a pungent stench. The fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island said harshly, My body is filled with poisonous blood. You won't be able to live for long after injuring me. A mocking look flashed through Solitary Cloud's eyes. How can your poisonous blood taint my bloodline? I'll be able to purge it away after cultivating for a few days. Although he was a WM, he had a trace of the bloodline of dragons flowing through his body after all. That trace of dragon's bloodline alone was enough to preserve his life and give him time to purge the remaining poison from his body. For someone like Su Zimo, a poisonous blood of this level was of no threat to him at all. In the blink of an eye, the 3 fiend demons were defeated and severely injured. The demons were shocked. A gray-haired youth stood up from levitating Goat Peak and walked over with a grim expression. A silver-robed man from Silver Moon Valley had already moved with a cold expression as well. A woman in makeup strode over from Thousand Snake Island. Look over there. The young master of levitating Goat Peak is alarmed. That person should be the #1 territorial lord of Silver Moon Valley. The alluring beauty of Thousand Snake Island is here as well. The demons were excited and discussed loudly. Beside the 1,000-year Blood Sea, the overlord of levitating Goat Peak harumphed coldly with a terrible expression. Old monkey, to think that Ape Chatter Ridge would have such a WM. Interesting. If I'm not wrong, this WM should be one of the 10 great territorial lords of Ape Chatter Ridge, right? What's his rank? The overlord of Silver Moon Valley was rather calm as he asked with a smile. He's not a territorial lord. The old ape shook his head with a strange expression. Not a territorial lord? The overlord of Thousand Snake Island laughed. Brother Yuan, you sure know how to joke. What is this WM if not a territorial lord? He's someone else's mount, the old ape replied indifferently. The expressions of the overlords present changed. Chapter 848. Young Master, I'm sorry I've lost. The fiend demon of levitating Goat Peak struggled to his feet. There were a few bloody holes on his back that were still bleeding, and he said softly with a pale expression, "Scram, don't embarrass me here." The gray-haired man from levitating Goat Peak who had walked over had no sympathy in his eyes as he berated coldly. Yes, the fiendish demons of levitating Goat Peak did not dare to complain. The gray-haired man was the young master of levitating Goat Peak and a direct descendant of the overlord of levitating Goat Peak. Among the juniors, he had the greatest potential and was the strongest. It was rumored in levitating Goat Peak that this young lord would definitely take over the position of overlord of levitating Goat Peak in the future. Even though the fiendish demon was furious, he did not dare to show any emotion. He could only lower his head and drag his broken body back. At the same time, the #1 territorial lord of Silver Moon Valley and the woman in makeup from Thousand Snake Island had arrived at Ape Chatter Ridge. Anyone could tell that the 3 of them did not come with good intentions. Ape Chatter Ridge is going to suffer now. That vicious flood dragon is already poisoned and injured. It definitely won't be able to stop the 3 of them. The first lord of the Silver Moon Valley and the woman in makeup from the Thousand Snake Island came to the Blood Sea to cultivate 1,000 years ago. Think about it, after 1,000 years, how strong are they now? The young master of levitating Goat Peak is not to be trifled with either. Some were gloating while others were watching the show. The demons were naturally happy to see such a scene. Otherwise, the myriad demon meat would only be about eating and drinking. What fun could there be? By the looks of it, the 3 of them are prepared to attack and cripple the territorial lords of Ape Chatter Ridge. Very likely. I reckon that Ape Chatter Ridge won't be able to get a seat in the Blood Sea this time. In front of Ape Chatter Ridge, the young master of levitating Goat Peak stopped in his tracks and swept his cold gaze across the demons of Ape Chatter Ridge one by one with a condescending aura. The eyes of the Ape Chatter Ridge demons flickered. Most of them did not dare to look him in the eye. Only a few people remained calm. Although Solitary Cloud's bloodline was poisoned and he was injured, he stood proudly and glared at the young master of levitating Goat Peak coldly, mocking, "Why? You guys want to get back at me? If you want to beat a dog, you have to look at its owner." The young master of levitating Goat Peak was expressionless as he said slowly, "You'll have to pay the price for hurting my men. I can give you a way out. Right at this moment, the silver-robed man approached and said in a low voice, "If you submit to me now and become my mount, I can pretend that nothing happened today." Ha! Solitary Cloud burst into laughter and glanced sideways at the silver-robed man, asking, "You think you're worthy?" He was a flood dragon that was going to transform into a dragon in the future. Other than the true dragon, who else could make him willingly submit to? The silver-robed man's face sank. His eyes flashed with killing intent as he said, "My patience is limited. You'd better not try to provoke me. Why are you wasting time with him? Just kill him." The young master of levitating Goat Peak said coldly. The woman in makeup from the Thousand Snake Island also laughed. She licked her lips and said, "I agree. Which one of you will attack? Let me have a taste of the ferocious flood dragon's flesh." A ferocious glint flashed across Solitary Cloud's eyes. Although he was stained with the poisonous blood, he was unwilling to show weakness. Just as he was about to attack, a fair hand appeared on his shoulder. The hand patted his shoulder gently. Instantly, Solitary Cloud calmed down and took half a step back. He looked at the young master of levitating Goat Peak and the other two with a pitiful gaze. Immediately after, a person walked out from behind him. Scarlet hair, green robes and delicate features, it was Su Zimo. Su Zimo had an indifferent expression. "The three of you, the reason why he can't submit to you guys is because he's the mount of someone else and already has a master." The three of them frowned when a low-level fiend demon suddenly appeared before them while the young master of levitating Goat Peak was in a standoff with Solitary Cloud. In their eyes, low-level fiend demons were ants. Prior to this, they had not even noticed Su Zimo's existence. "Oh." The young master of levitating Goat Peak sneered casually with a mocking expression. "He already has a master. Is it you?" Immediately after, the young master of levitating Goat Peak retracted his smile and said coldly, "A low-level fiend demon like you has no right to interrupt our conversation. Get lost." What a coincidence! Su Zimo was not annoyed and merely smiled gently. "His master is me." Ha! The young master of levitating Goat Peak and the other two exchanged glances and paused for a moment before bursting into laughter, as though they had just heard the funniest joke in the world. A pure-blooded ferocious beast and a mid-level fiend demon, was the mount of a low-level fiend demon? The three of them laughed brazenly. However, after a while, the three of them realized that the atmosphere was a little strange. Although they were laughing, none of the fiend demons of Ape Chatter Ridge were laughing. Furthermore, the demons of Ape Chatter Ridge were looking at the three of them as though they were idiots. The silver-robed man was the first to react and frowned. The woman in makeup narrowed her eyes and pondered. Both of them had cultivated for thousands of years and would naturally not make the mistake of underestimating the enemy. However, on second thought, the person before them was nothing special and was merely a low-level fiend demon. Even if he had some tricks up his sleeve, he was indeed not worth their attention. There were way too many methods a mid-level fiend demon could use to kill a low-level fiend demon. Furthermore, they were top-tier existences among mid-level fiend demons. If they could not even take down a low-level fiend demon, wouldn't their thousands of years of cultivation have all been for naught? The young master of levitating Goat Peak was still rearing his head in laughter, as though he did not notice anything amiss around him. All of a sudden, his laughter vanished. The young master of levitating Goat Peak suddenly attacked. His attack was more like a sneak attack that came without any warning and was as swift as lightning. The demons of Ape Chatter Ridge merely felt their vision blur and the young master of levitating Goat Peak had already vanished. So fast. The demons were alarmed. The young master of levitating Goat Peak's gaze was cold and menacing. Instantly, he arrived before Su Zimo with no trace of a smile on his face. "Kill." The young master of levitating Goat Peak hollered. In the eyes of the young master of levitating Goat Peak, Su Zimo was already a dead man by now. His movement technique was extremely fast and coupled with his sudden attack, even mid-level fiend demons would not be able to react in time, let alone low-level fiend demons. However, he was slightly stunned when his gaze met with Su Zimo's. There was a hint of mockery in Su Zimo's eyes. "Get lost." A loud roar echoed in his ears. The young master of levitating Goat Peak felt as though he was struck by lightning, as though his eardrums were about to be pierced. Immediately after, a palm slapped him heavily on the face, and the tremendous force almost shattered half of his face. The young master of levitating Goat Peak charged quickly but retreated even faster. Right in front of everyone, the young master of levitating Goat Peak had just charged over when he was sent flying by Su Zimo's slap with a roar. The strange thing was that Su Zimo seemed to have sensed it long ago and struck in advance. It was as though the young master of levitating Goat Peak had slapped himself. The young master of levitating Goat Peak thought that he could hide his intentions from everyone. However, he did not know that Su Zimo possessed an unfathomable spirit perception. The moment his killing intent was triggered, Su Zimo was already prepared. The demons were in an uproar. The young master of levitating Goat Peak could be considered as the strongest territorial lord of levitating Goat Peak. However, he was sent flying by a low-level fiend demon with a single slap. If the demons had not witnessed it personally, none of them would have believed it. Chapter 849. Beside the Blood Sea. The overlord of levitating Goat Peak had a grim expression. It was as though Su Zimo's slap had landed on his face and it stung. The overlords of Silver Moon Valley and Thousand Snake Island frowned slightly. The three of them were not the only ones. The other overlords were shocked as well. Although they were conversing, the commotion over there could not be hidden from the senses of the seven overlords. The overlords present found it amusing when they saw the low-level fiend demon stand out and boast shamelessly that the WM was his mount. However, from the looks of it, there was truly something strange about this matter. Could this demon be cultivating some sort of cultivation technique that conceals his cultivation realm? Almost at the same time, the spirit consciousnesses of the six overlords of levitating Goat Peak, Silver Moon Valley and Thousand Snake Island descended upon Su Zimo. Before long, the six overlords could sense that Su Zimo was a low-level fiend demon. However, they could not tell the true form of this low-level fiend demon. The overlords of Silver Moon Valley and Thousand Snake Island heaved a sigh of relief and were relieved for the time being. If it was only a low-level fiend demon, it should not be much of a threat. The reason why the young master of levitating Goat Peak was defeated so quickly was most likely because he had underestimated his opponent. The old ape sneered internally, but his expression did not change. This bunch of fiend demons wanted to bully Ape Chatter Ridge, but they had truly hit a wall this time round. In front of Ape Chatter Ridge's formation, the silver-robed man's heart skipped a beat and he nodded solemnly. Interesting. You do have some tricks up your sleeves. He could tell that apart from underestimating his opponent, the reason why the young master of levitating Goat Peak was defeated so quickly was because he was momentarily stunned by the low-level fiend demon's roar. Sound domain's secret skill, huh? I know a little about it as well. The silver-robed man strode forward and howled into the skies. W.O. A wolf howl sounded. The demons in front of Ape Chatter Ridge's formation were shocked. Although the sound was not loud, it was extremely strange and caused their blood chi to rumble in an extremely uncomfortable manner. Some of the fiend demons could not take it and grunted dully, covering their ears with both hands as they hunched over bitterly. As expected of the wailing of ghosts and howling of wolves. It's so unpleasant to hear. Su Zimo's expression did not change. He also took a step forward, stretched out his palm, and pressed it down on the silver-robed man's face. He shouted, "Shut up!" The group of demons stood at the back. They were further away and could not withstand it. As for Su Zimo, he was standing closest to the silver-robed man, but he didn't seem to be affected at all. He even had the strength to counterattack. What's wrong with this low-level fiendish demon? Why is he completely fine? This demon can't be deaf, right? The fiendish demons watching from afar were puzzled. How could they know that Su Zimo, who cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, had such a strong blood chi that even the primordial 9 races could not match? Such a powerful sound domain's secret technique posed no threat to him at all. Su Zimo flipped the sky and suppressed it. The wind howled. A suffocating air current surged into the silver-robed man's mouth. His howl was interrupted and he only had time to say a single word. The silver-robed man's blood-chi rumbled and the flesh on his arms expanded. Instantly his robes burst apart, revealing two muscular arms. Erg! The silver-robed man exhaled and raised his arms to block. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The sound of flesh colliding and bones grinding could be heard in a cringe-inducing manner. The silver-robed man crossed his arms and resisted Su Zimo's palm with all his might. Both sides seemed to be evenly matched. However, the silver-robed man's face was flushed red and his blood-chi was pushed to its limits. Green veins popped up on his arms one after another and his muscles intertwined like spirit snakes. It was a menacing sight. However, Su Zimo was much calmer. His expression was normal and even his breathing was abnormally steady. The silver-robed man did not dare to release his strength at all. The moment he relaxed, Su Zimo's palm would crush his head into smithereens. Compared to the two menacing and thick arms of the silver-robed man, Su Zimo's arms looked extremely slender. His palms were fair and his fingers were slender, sparkling like jade. However, those fair and slender palms suppressed the silver-robed man so tightly that he could not break free at all. This was truly a case of brute strength taking down everything. What's the true form of that low-level fiend demon? What a strong physique. What terrifying blood-chi. Humph! If that woman from Thousand Snake Island were to attack, that low-level fiend demon would definitely die. Just as the group of demons were feeling shocked and emotional, an even more shocking scene took place. Su Zimo held the silver-robed man down with one hand and strode forward at the same time. He reached out with his other palm and enveloped the woman in makeup from Thousand Snake Island. "Come over as well." Su Zimo hollered and demonic chi spewed out from his palm. With a loud boom, he crushed down in a blanketing manner. All the demons were shocked. None of them had expected that Su Zimo would have the strength to spare and take the initiative to attack the woman in makeup while suppressing the silver-robed man. The woman in makeup was startled as well. To begin with, she was tempted to attack but hesitated. But now, it was no longer up to her. She had no choice but to attack. Pumph! The woman in makeup harumphed coldly and reached out with her tender hands. Clenching them into fists, she punched towards Su Zimo's palm. Thousand Snake Island specialized in poison and her physique and blood chi could not compare to the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and the silver-robed man. The demons could not understand why the woman in makeup wanted to attack the man in makeup with her weakness. However, just as the fist and palm were about to collide, something happened. Suddenly, two sharp, curved objects extended from between the fingers of the woman in makeup. They resembled two venomous fangs and shone with a ghastly green light. "Since you're so arrogant, I'll teach you a lesson." A cold glint flashed through the eyes of the woman in makeup as she revealed a vicious smile. The two venomous fangs between her fingers were her destiny dermic weapon and were laced with lethal poison. Even pure-blooded ferocious beasts would be doomed if they were stabbed. She believed that it would be extremely easy for her to kill a low-level fiend demon with that poison. At the same time, the silver-robed man seized the opportunity to counterattack when he saw that. The silver-robed man roared and his face turned purplish-green. Channeling all his power of blood chi, he gathered it in his arms and pushed upwards. Unknowingly, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak had crawled up. Although his cheeks were swollen, his combat strength was still present. His eyes were filled with venomous hatred as he seized the opportunity to charge over as well. In the eyes of the demons, Su Zimo was already in grave danger after the powerful counterattack of the three fiend demons. The tide seemed to have turned. On the battlefield, Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly when he sensed the counterattack of the silver-robed man. Exerting strength in his palm, he harumphed coldly. "Kneel." Instantly, the silver-robed man's counterattack vanished and he was suppressed by Su Zimo's palm strike. With a thud, the silver-robed man knelt on the ground. All the demons were shocked. This demon still had strength to spare. On the other side, Su Zimo seemed to have sensed the danger long ago. Clang, clang. Two fingernails extended from his fingers that were as sharp as swords. Su Zimo bent his fingers slightly and flicked gently, landing on the two venomous fangs of the woman in makeup. Clang. The two venomous fangs were repelled by Su Zimo's two fingers. The woman in makeup was shocked and retreated hurriedly. Right then, the young master of levitating Goat Peak closed in with a swollen face and a murderous aura. Su Zimo's gaze swept across like lightning. The young master of levitating Goat Peak's heart skipped a beat and his aura diminished by more than half. He retreated a few steps in fear and did not dare to attack. Chapter 850. The woman in makeup retreated with a dark expression, not daring to advance recklessly. With just two fingers, Su Zimo sent her destiny dermic weapon flying. That terrifying power was something that made her extremely wary. The silver-robed man held onto Su Zimo's palm with both arms and channeled all his strength to his limits. However, that palm did not budge at all. It was as though the legendary Mount Meru of the Buddhist monasteries was crushing down on his head, and he had no chance to struggle at all. Right now, the only method he could use was the essence spirit secret skill of the Silver Moon Wolf race. However, he did not dare to do so. He was right beneath Su Zimo's palm. Although the attack of essence spirit secret skills was fast, Su Zimo could destroy his essence spirit with a single thought. He did not dare to take the risk. The young master of levitating Goat Peak retreated a couple of steps with a dark gaze and cursed internally. He had not expected the silver-robed man and woman in makeup to be defeated so quickly. By the time he arrived, it was already a stalemate between him and the low-level fiend demon. This change was way too fast and all his previous plans were for naught. Furthermore, Su Zimo's aura was way too strong and his gaze was frightening. As though he was possessed, he retreated a couple of steps in fright and froze on the spot, not knowing whether to advance or retreat. F***CK. The young master of levitating Goat Peak was scared off. That low-level fiend demon's combat strength is so frightening. He shouldn't be a nobody. Why haven't I heard of him before? The three of them were defeated way too quickly. Could their reputation be for show? The expressions of the young master of levitating Goat Peak and the other two turned extremely terrible when they heard the discussions around them. Initially, they wanted to teach the territorial lords of Ape Chatter Ridge a lesson when they came to provoke them. It would be best if they could cripple a few of them. To think that the three of them would be suppressed by a low-level fiend demon. Little brother, aren't you going to let go? Unknowingly, the overlord of Silver Moon Valley had already arrived before Ape Chatter Ridge and glared at Su Zimo expressionlessly. Behind him, the other 6 overlords were present. The overlords of Levitating Goat Peak and Thousand Snake Island looked at Su Zimo with cold gazes. The other overlords' gazes were filled with curiosity and amusement. The old ape stood at the side as well. The reason why he did not stop the overlord of Silver Moon Valley and the others was because he was worried that Su Zimo would be rash and kill the 3 overlords. Sweeping his gaze, Su Zimo understood what the old ape meant. In reality, he had no intention of killing the 3 fiend essence spirits secret realms. The reason why he came here today was to cultivate in the blood have a grub. Because of Su Zimo's essence spirit of blood, the overlords of the blood have a taboo. Su, goat, Su. Su Zimo retracted his palm and cupped his fists towards the overlords before him. He was calm and composed, neither servile nor overbearing. To be fair, it was rare for mid-level or even high-level fiend demons to be able to maintain their composure under the gazes of 7 overlords, let alone low-level fiend demons. Be to form the over's goat. Have a good. Very good. The overlord of Silver Moon Valley nodded repeatedly with a mysterious glint in his eyes. The overlord of Thousand Snake Island chuckled as well and said coyly, "Little brother, you've only cultivated for slightly more than 100 years and yet you're already so strong. Even I'm starting to admire you. Little bastard, give me your life." The silver-robed man stood up and heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, he could not hold it in any longer and a silver moon appeared on his glabella. He was about to kill. The reason why he dared to attack was naturally because the overlord of Silver Moon Valley was present. Piak! A crisp sound echoed as a slap landed heavily on the silver-robed man's face. His spirit consciousness was shattered by that slap the moment he condensed it. The silver-robed man was stunned. The demons present were dumbfounded as well. The one who slapped the silver-robed man was the overlord of Silver Moon Valley. Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? Get lost. The overlord of Silver Moon Valley hollered and glared at the silver-robed man. The silver-robed man was indignant and grit his teeth in hatred. He glared at Su Zimo fiercely and blamed this humiliation on Su Zimo. Sorry for the lack of discipline. I've embarrassed myself in front of everyone, the overlord of Silver Moon Valley said indifferently. The old ape's expression was normal and his eyes were half closed, like an old monk in meditation without any expression. Aren't you going to head back? Are you waiting for me to slap you as well? The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak glanced at the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and turned to leave as well. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak could only swallow his humiliation and return as well. In the blink of an eye, the overlords had already dispersed. The conflict came to an end just like that. The demons present shook their heads regretfully, feeling that they had yet to enjoy themselves. Su Zimo gazed at the departing backs of the overlords with a flickering gaze. No one knew what he was thinking about. Overlord, why did you stop me? Given the moment he returned to Silver Moon Valley's formation, the silver-robed man sent a voice transmission impatiently. Idiot! The overlord of Silver Moon Valley interrupted and berated. Do you think that old ape is blind? How can you possibly succeed when you attack in front of him? By the time he returned, the overlord of Silver Moon Valley's expression was completely dark and murderous. If he was merely slightly annoyed that Su Zimo suppressed the number 1 territorial lord of Silver Moon Valley, he was already filled with killing intent the moment he faced off against the 7 overlords. A low-level fiend demon with such strong combat strength. If he possessed such a temperament after cultivating for slightly more than 100 years, who would be able to stop him in the future if he was not killed? With the existence of this demon in Ape Chatter Ridge, it was not impossible for them to destroy the other 6 territories and unify the 10,000 demon valleys in the future. Overlord, what do you mean? The silver-robed man asked cautiously. The overlord of Silver Moon Valley sneered and glanced in the direction of Levitating Goat Peak and Thousand Snake Island. Don't be fooled by those old fogies' indifference. I'm guessing that I'm not the only one who wants to kill this demon. We have to wait for an opportunity to get rid of this demon. The overlord of Silver Moon Valley narrowed his eyes and seemed to be plotting something. After pondering for a moment, the overlord of Silver Moon Valley seemed to have recalled something and sent a voice transmission. Remember, if you attack again, use your Essence Spirit secret skills immediately. Don't get entangled with this demon. Remember, don't engage in melee combat with him. The overlord of Silver Moon Valley rubbed his chin with a grim expression and murmured, I haven't managed to tell what the true form of this demon is. I reckon that his background is not simple. At the same time, the overlords of Levitating Goat Peak, Thousand Snake Island, Vermilion Cloud Valley and Confusion Fog seemed to be resting with their eyes closed. However, in reality, they were communicating with their territorial lords with their spirit consciousnesses as well. In front of Ape Chatter Ridge. Be careful. Suddenly, the old ape sent a voice transmission. This time round, you've humiliated the 3 overlords. Given their vengeful nature, I'm afraid they'll have something else up their sleeves. From this day forth, don't stray too far from me. Yes, thank you, Senior, Su Zimo nodded. Although the overlords of Silver Moon Valley hid it extremely well, Su Zimo had already sensed it the moment their killing intent surged. The old ape continued, however, you don't have to worry too much. They won't dare to act rashly with me around and everyone watching. Chapter 851. For the next few days, under the strong suggestion of the overlords of Silver Moon Valley, Levitating Goat Peak and Thousand Snake Island, the demons partied in advance and feasted till dawn. The 1,000 demon meet was held as per normal. However, the fight for the Blood Sea spots was postponed. The other overlords had no objections to that and neither did the old ape. Everyone could guess what the three overlords of Silvermoon Valley were thinking, but they did not state it out loud. The young master of levitating Goat Peak, the silver-robed man and the woman in makeup were injured to a certain extent in the hands of Su Zimo and had to recuperate no matter what. For the next 3 days, the old ape stood guard at the front. Su Zimo did not leave as well. During this period of time, there were even some unbelievable rays of light coming from the forest far away. Some fiend demons said that a great treasure had appeared there. In fact, some fiend demons that returned even said that an ancient ruin had appeared there and attracted many fiend demons. However, Su Zimo was unmoved the entire time. Under his orders, Monkey, the Linghu and the others did not leave the old ape's side as well. For the past 3 days, Su Zimo could clearly sense that some gazes with ill intentions were watching him from a certain corner. If he were to leave the old ape's side, there was a high chance that he would walk into a trap set up by others. 3 days later, the 7 overlords announced at the same time that the fight for the Blood Sea spots had officially begun. The first round was simple. With the 1,000-year Blood Sea as the center, there were some Blood Sea badges made of superior-grade mystic iron hidden within a radius of 500 kilometers. There were a total of 500 badges. The Blood Sea badges could be placed on the ground, buried in the mud or hidden in caves. The fiend demons that participated in this round merely had to find a single badge. This round could eliminate most fiend demons. That was because although there were 500 Blood Sea badges, only the top 100 fiend demons that found the badges would be qualified to fight for the final 10 spots. More than 100 territorial lords of Levitating Goat Peak, Silvermoon Valley, Thousand Snake Island, Vermilion Cloud Valley, Confusion Mist Swamp and Golden Flames Mountain stood out. The opportunity to cultivate in the Blood Sea was rare and everyone wanted to give it a try. If he was lucky, he might be able to enter the final battle. As for Ape Chatter Ridge, there were only slightly more than 10 fiend demons taking part, including Su Zimo and Solitary Cloud. Are you sure you can pass this test? The old ape was still in disbelief. He could not help but grab Su Zimo and ask again. The range of a low-level fiend demon's essence spirit was limited to 50 kilometers. It was hard for him to imagine that Su Zimo's divine sense could reach an area of 500 miles away. Su Zimo smiled and said, "We can try." The old ape nodded. Su Zimo and the others came to the side of the Blood Sea and waited. Why is that Mo participating as well? Isn't he a low-level fiendish demon? Over the past 3 days, Su Zimo's name had spread throughout the 1,000 demon meet. He's probably here to join in the fun. It's true that his battle prowess is formidable, but if he blindly joins in on this kind of matter, he'll only bring disgrace upon himself. Many fiendish demons discussed softly. But when the young master of Levitating Goat Peak caught sight of Su Zimo, he scoffed coldly and said in an eccentric manner, "What's a low-level fiend demon like you doing here? He's probably here to be the last one." Haha. The demons of Levitating Goat Peak burst into laughter. Su Zimo had an indifferent expression as he glanced sideways at the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and asked, "Do you think that I can't obtain the Blood Sea badge? How dare a low-level fiend demon like you covet the Blood Sea badge? That's the greatest joke in the world." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak finally found an opportunity to mock Su Zimo to vent the humiliation he suffered 3 days ago and burst into laughter. "How far can your spirit consciousness extend? 20 kilometers? 30 kilometers? Let me tell you, the Blood Sea badge is hidden 500 kilometers away. Do you think you can? What if I can obtain the Blood Sea badge?" Before the young master of Levitating Goat Peak could finish, he was interrupted by Su Zimo. "What did you say?" The young master of Levitating Goat Peak shouted as though he had heard the greatest joke in the world. "If you can obtain the Blood Sea badge, I'll eat it." Su Zimo's lips curled and a playful look flashed through his eyes. Originally, he really didn't have much interest in the first stage. However, he was tempted after hearing the young master of Levitating Goat Peak's words. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak had a provocative expression as he pressed, "Demonimo, do you dare to make the bet? What are we betting on?" Su Zimo asked. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak shouted, We'll bet on whether you can obtain the Blood Sea badge. This, Su Zimo pretended to ponder deeply, as though he was put in a spot. When he saw that, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak was even more certain as he mocked with a smile, "If you don't dare to make the bet, scram. Don't embarrass yourself here." That's right. What's a low-level fiend demon like you trying to join in the fun for? The demons of Levitating Goat Peak chimed in hurriedly. All right, we'll make the bet. Su Zimo's face flushed red as though he was infuriated. However, his blood boiled as he agreed to it. A gentleman never goes back on his word. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak added hurriedly, afraid that Su Zimo would go back on his word. He surveyed the surroundings and looked at the 1,000-odd fiend demons around the Blood Sea before declaring loudly, "Everyone listen up. I'm making a bet with Demon Mo right here. If he can obtain the Blood Sea badge, I'll eat it in front of everyone." "What if you can't get it?" The young master of Levitating Goat Peak turned to look at Su Zimo and asked smugly, "Up to you if you can't get it." Su Zimo reverted to his indifferent expression and shrugged gently. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak was stunned. Suddenly, he felt uneasy when he caught sight of Su Zimo's expression. However, on second thought, he was definitely going to win this bet. Even if he lost, so what if he ate a Blood Sea badge? Although the Blood Sea badge was made from superior-class mystic metal and was difficult to digest, it did not matter if he ate it. At most, he could just excrete it later. Furthermore, how could he lose? At that thought, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak calmed down and nodded. "Since that's the case, if you lose, you'll have to kneel down in front of everyone and let me ride on your back to circle the Blood Sea 3 times. All right, Su Zimo nodded in agreement. This could be considered an extreme humiliation. This bet did not seem fair as well. However, all the demons thought that Su Zimo had gone mad and lost his rationality because he agreed to it. That demon Mo has cultivated for too short a time and is young and impetuous. He can't take provocations and fell for it after a few words of mockery. Fu, the reputation that he built up previously is going to be destroyed overnight. Some of the fiend demons smirked coldly. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak continued, "I'm willing to swear a Tao oath. If I go back on my words, my cultivation will not improve in the future and I'll die from an unexpected calamity." Tao oaths were extremely mysterious. It was fine if he did not swear it. However, if he did, none of the cultivators of the 10,000 races would dare to go against it. Even emperors would be bound by Tao oaths. The demons were shocked. If he swore a Tao oath, it would mean that he was serious and there would be no room for negotiation. Su Zimo smiled gently and swore a Tao oath as well. With that, the bet between both parties was established. Chapter 852. Naturally, the 7 overlords were aware of the bet between Su Zimo and the young master of Levitating Goat Peak. Although the 7 overlords had different intentions, none of them interfered. To be fair, even the old ape was not optimistic about Su Zimo's chances of winning this bet. However, he believed that Su Zimo would have a way to deal with it. The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak had lived for thousands of years and believed in his judgment. There was no way Su Zimo would win this bet. Furthermore, even if some unexpected variable were to appear and Su Zimo won, it would not matter if the young master of Levitating Goat Peak were to swallow the Blood Sea badge. As for the other overlords, they had their own thoughts as well. The overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp said that demons' combat strength is extraordinary. However, it's wishful thinking for a low-level fiend demon to obtain a spot to cultivate in the Blood Sea. Look at how certain that demon is. He might have some tricks up his sleeves, the overlord of Thousand Snake Island sneered. Suddenly, the voice of the overlord of Silver Moon Valley sounded in the consciousnesses of the overlords of Levitating Goat Peak, Thousand Snake Island and Vermilion Cloud Valley. I'm not concerned about that. I merely want to know what the true form of that demon is. Since that demon is participating in the first trial, he has to open up his consciousness and release his spirit consciousness. In that case, this is a rare opportunity for us to investigate. The gazes of the overlords landed on the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley at the same time. At that moment, The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley was lying in his carriage with a bulging belly, drinking and having fun like a glutton. However, the overlords knew that this fatty was the one with the best investigative techniques among the 7 of them. The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley was the same as before, having fun with the woman beside him. However, his voice sounded in the minds of the overlords, "Everyone, don't worry. I'll definitely be able to find out everything about that demon when he releases his spirit consciousness." The overlords were communicating with their spirit consciousnesses, and outsiders naturally could not hear them. The old ape sat on the spot silently. As though he sensed something, his eyes widened with a cold glint and his white brows fluttered slightly. Beside the Blood Sea, the 1,000-odd fiend demons were ready and raring to go. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak was filled with confidence and looked at Su Zimo provocatively. Su Zimo smiled faintly. Since he dared to accept this bet, he naturally had a card up his sleeve. He had cultivated 2 primordial spirits that had never been seen before. Furthermore, the range of the spirit consciousness of the 2 essence spirits had already reached 50 kilometers, even though they had just entered the nascent soul realm. Right now, Su Zimo was already at the peak of mid-stage nascent soul realm. Be it the scarlet-haired Een spirit or the black-haired essence spirit, their spirit consciousnesses had a range of more than 250 kilometers. If the 2 primordial spirits fused, they might even reach 1,000 miles. To him, passing the first stage was not difficult at all. "Ready? Begin." Following the order, divine senses burst forth from the surroundings of the Blood Sea and spread rapidly into the distance. If he wanted to pass the stage, not only did he have to find the Blood Sea token, he also had to find it as quickly as possible. Although there were 500 Blood Sea badges, only the top 100 fiend demons were qualified to participate in the final contest. Su Zimo also spread out his divine sense. At this moment, countless gazes gathered on Su Zimo, wanting to see how far his divine sense could travel. 5 kilometers. 50 kilometers. In the blink of an eye, it was already 50 kilometers. The demons were shocked. 50 kilometers was the limit of the spirit consciousnesses of low-level fiend demons. However, in reality, there were not many low-level fiend demons that could reach 50 kilometers. Those that could reach 80 to 90 kilometers were already peerless geniuses. However, in the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had already reached 50 kilometers. Furthermore, it broke through 50 kilometers before long. He's truly strong. It's no wonder why this demon dared to take on this gamble. He's truly a rare genius that appears once in 1,000 years, no, 10,000 years. So what if he can break through 50 kilometers? The Blood Sea token is 250 kilometers away. He's way too far away. Furthermore, given his cultivation realm, his spirit consciousness will deteriorate faster as the range of his spirit consciousness expands. The voice of the fiend demon turned softer and softer until he could no longer continue. That was because he discovered that after 50 kilometers, the speed of Su Zimo's spirit consciousness did not show any signs of slowing down. In fact, it even surpassed most fiend demons. This demon is truly, all the demons widened their eyes and were speechless. Before long, the 200 kilometers were covered under the gazes of all the demons. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness did not deteriorate and was way ahead. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak had a grim expression. The moment Su Zimo released his spirit consciousness, the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley, who was initially enjoying himself, tossed down his wine cup. His eyes widened and his eyeballs protruded continuously in a sinister manner, as though they were about to pop out. That pair of eyeballs was filled with a resplendent glow. The gaze of the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley traversed the void and entered Su Zimo's consciousness instantly. "Vermilion Cloud, how is it?" The overlord of Silver Moon Valley frowned and asked with a voice transmission. The overlords of Levitating Goat Peak, Thousand Snake Island and Confusion Mist Swamp sent voice transmissions as well. Just now, they could not find anything even after checking. There seemed to be an invisible force on Mo's body that was able to cut off their senses from beginning to end. Strange, a moment later, The resplendent glow in the eyes of the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley dissipated gradually, and he retracted his eyeballs as well, murmuring softly, "What's wrong?" The overlord of Silver Moon Valley could no longer be bothered to send a voice transmission and blurted out. The old ape and the overlord of Golden Flames Mountain glanced sideways. The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley frowned slightly and said slowly, "That demon's true form is in human form." The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak's gaze turned cold and killing intent surged as he asked coldly, "He's a cultivator? If he's a human cultivator, we should kill him immediately." The overlord of Thousand Snake Island added, "Chi." The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain sneered, "Are the two of you deaf? Vermilion Cloud Valley has already said that this demon." The overlord of Silver Moon Valley waved it off. "Those words are irrelevant. What do you mean by demons are in human form? I think he's a cultivator. You guys want to accuse him of being a human and kill him?" The old macaque opened its eyes expressionlessly and said slowly, "Aren't your thoughts a little too obvious?" "He's not a cultivator." The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley shook his head as well. "I can sense that his essence spirit carries a rich demonic chi. There's no way it's the essence spirit of a cultivator." Indeed, the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak and the other two wanted to label Su Zimo as a cultivator so that they could kill him legitimately. However, since the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley had said that, they could only let it go. Furthermore, the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley hesitated. "Furthermore what?" The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak pressed. The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley said deeply, "Furthermore, there seem to be some scales on the body of that human-shaped essence spirit that can't be seen clearly." "Scales?" The few overlords frowned. The old ape said indifferently, "Don't forget about the origins of the demon race. In the primordial era, it was extremely common for humanoid living beings to roam the wilderness." The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain nodded. "That makes sense. Only the bloodlines of living beings from the primordial era possess such immense potential." The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley was about to continue when a series of exclamations sounded from the side. "Look, it's already beyond 250 kilometers." Everyone's hearts skipped a beat as they turned over. The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley's gaze flickered and he remained silent. There was something else he did not say. The scales on the human-shaped living being did not seem like the scales of an ordinary demon beast. Chapter 853. 250 kilometers. Most mid-level fiend demons would not be able to reach that range. But now, the spirit consciousness of a low-level fiend demon in the Thousand Demon Meat had already exceeded a range of 250 kilometers. Furthermore, it was still extending continuously. The eyes of the demons were no longer filled with shock. They were filled with shock. This is truly hard to imagine. What is the true form of that demon for him to be so strong? The young master of Levitating Goat Peak is definitely going to lose this bet. That might not be the case. The strength of one's spirit consciousness will weaken significantly beyond 250 kilometers. It's still unknown if he can find the Blood Sea badge. This logic was similar to one's eyesight. The closer one was, the clearer one would be able to see. The further one was, the blurrier one's vision would be, and it would naturally be harder to search for something. The fiend demons that participated in the first trial naturally had a range of 250 kilometers with their spirit consciousnesses. Otherwise, there was no need for them to participate and it would be unnecessary. However, beyond 250 kilometers, most of the fiend demons' spirit consciousnesses were at rock bottom. Not to mention searching for something from 500 miles away, they couldn't even sense anything from 500 miles away. Although this trial seemed simple, there were two aspects to it. The first was the range of one's spirit consciousness. The second was the refinement of one's essence spirit. The more refined one's essence spirit was, the clearer one's perception of their surroundings would be. Su Zimo's scarlet-haired Ian's spirit cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness and borrowed from the Great Wilderness Dragon King's spirit refinement technique. Which demon's essence spirit could be as refined as his? Even his black-haired essence spirit was refined from 2 heaven-grade cultivation techniques of the immortal and Buddhist sections. With the support of the creation Qinglian, it was refined and pure and was not inferior to the scarlet-haired Yin spirit. Therefore, even after Su Zimo's spirit consciousness extended to 250 kilometers, he could still sense the surrounding environment, scenery, temperature, and direction of the wind clearly. Everything he saw was reflected in his mind. He could even sense the movement of insects and ants in the soil. Su Zimo was in no hurry. Even if the blood sea badge was buried 3 feet underground, he would be able to dig it out with his spirit consciousness. In his mind, he was thinking about what happened just now. The moment he released his spirit consciousness, he clearly sensed another powerful gaze penetrating the barrier formed by the Mingwang prayer beads and entering his consciousness. This caused him to be shocked. Of course, after arriving here, Su Zimo was extremely careful and had hidden his black-haired essence spirit. The creation lotus platform floated in a corner and all its petals were closed, ready to bloom. The black-haired essence spirit was hidden within. Therefore, Su Zimo's essence spirit consciousness, the essence spirit, the spirit to the spirit, to the spirit. The scarlet-haired Yin spirit had already sensed the gaze of Vermilion Cloud Valley's overlord. As if stimulated by something, the scarlet-haired Yin spirit opened its eyes. Its gaze shone brightly and scarlet dragon scales grew all over its body, as if they were burning with flames. Its entire body exuded a domineering aura. Demonic beasts placed great importance on territory. That was the might of dragons. Ordinary demon beasts could not defend against it at all. Although the overlord of Xixia Valley cultivated a secret skill that allowed his gaze to penetrate the obstruction of the Mingwang prayer beads and enter Su Zimo's consciousness, his strength was already depleted. His gaze dissipated the moment it made contact with the scarlet-haired Yin spirit's gaze. That was the reason why the overlord of Xixia Valley did not manage to catch a clear glimpse of Su Zimo's true form even till the end. He merely felt a lingering fear towards the aura of the scarlet-haired Yin spirit. This was merely an ordinary battle of spirit consciousnesses in front of the demons. However, nobody expected that Su Zimo would have already exchanged blows with an overlord to a certain extent right at the start of this battle of spirit consciousnesses. The entire process was silent but extremely dangerous. Su Zimo could not guarantee if the overlord of Xixia Valley would attack if his black-haired essence spirit was exposed. However, the overlord of Silver Moon Valley and the others would definitely not let him off. "Ah, I've found it." Right then, the laughter of a fiend demon interrupted Su Zimo's thoughts. It was a fiend demon from Golden Flames Mountain. His spirit consciousness had just exceeded 250 kilometers when he discovered a blood sea badge on a patch of grass. Apart from the refinement of one's essence spirit, luck was also a factor in searching for blood sea badges. Some blood sea badges were displayed on the surface, tossed casually on the grass or placed on rocks. However, some of the blood sea badges were hidden deeper. Therefore, the longer time passed, the harder it was to find blood sea badges. That was because most fiend demons would find blood sea badges that were displayed on the surface. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak had a grim expression. He was already depressed when he sensed that Su Zimo's spirit consciousness had exceeded 250 kilometers. If nothing went wrong, he should have lost this bet. However, he felt that he had no regrets about his loss. Who would have thought that a low-level fiend demon's spirit consciousness could extend to such a terrifying extent? So what if I lost? The young master of Levitating Goat Peak sneered internally, "It's just a blood sea badge. It doesn't matter." Before long, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak found a blood sea badge on a tree branch. He gripped the badge with his spirit consciousness and retracted it swiftly. In that short period of time, almost half of the fiend demons had already found blood sea badges. Those fiend demons were excited. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak swept his gaze after retracting his spirit consciousness. Su Zimo was a step faster than him with a blood sea badge in his hands as well. It was clear that he had lost this bet. This is interesting. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak is going to devour the badge. Fufu, I don't even know what a blood sea badge tastes like. The young master of levitating goat Peak harumphed coldly with a terrible expression when he heard the discussions around him. Demon Mo, you've won this round. The young master of levitating goat Peak glared at Su Zimo with a dark gaze and said coldly, let's wait and see. The moment he said that, he suddenly realized that Su Zimo's eyes were closed and he seemed to be deep in thought, as though he had not heard him. Humph, what's with the act? The young master of levitating goat Peak pouted his lips. You're pretending to be deep. Right then, a few more fiend demons obtained blood sea badges and retracted their spirit consciousnesses with strange expressions. They turned to look at Su Zimo, who was standing silently at the side with shocked expressions. The young master of levitating goat Peak had retracted his spirit consciousness long ago after obtaining the blood sea badges and naturally could not sense it. However, their soul consciousness had clearly sensed an extremely powerful soul consciousness from 500 miles away, which was searching for them without any scruples. It swept through all the blood sea badges within 250 kilometers. It did not matter if they were hidden in the depths of the soil or tree trunks. The spirit consciousness would find them and envelop them before continuing its search. By the time the few fiend demons retracted their spirit consciousnesses, the powerful spirit consciousness had already enveloped more than 100 blood sea badges. What is Demon Mo trying to do? The few fiend demons were secretly speechless. They stole a glance at the young master of levitating goat Peak and thought of a possibility but could not believe it. In front of Ape Chatter Ridge, Yuan Ling could not help but be dumbfounded when she saw that with her spirit consciousness. Before long, Yuan Ling seemed to have thought of something and burst into laughter. What's wrong? Monkey and the others could not help but ask, as they could not see what was happening 250 kilometers away with their spirit consciousnesses. That young master is in trouble. Yuan Ling held back her laughter and said darkly, your boss, how should I put it? He's truly ruthless. Chapter 854. The young master of levitating goat Peak realized that the atmosphere around him was a little strange. Many fiend demons looked at him with pitiful and gloating expressions. So what if he devoured a blood sea badge? The young master of levitating goat Peak frowned and pondered. Right then, the 100th fiend demon obtained a blood sea badge. The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain stood up and declared loudly, the first round is over. The remaining fiend demons retracted their spirit consciousnesses and shook their heads in disappointment. The young master of levitating goat Peak thought about it. Even if he lost the bet, he would only have to swallow the badge and lose some face. There wouldn't be much trouble. At that thought, he regained his confidence and raised his head slightly, looking at Su Zimo with an indifferent expression. The 7 overlords had already arrived in midair. The young master of levitating goat Peak raised his head and was slightly stunned. For some reason, the overlord of levitating goat Peak had a dark expression and was even glaring at him fiercely. That was an extremely stern gaze that caused his heart to skip a beat. The young master of levitating goat Peak could not understand. Even though he was defeated in the hands of Mo 3 days ago and was stunned on the spot, the overlord of levitating goat Peak did not say anything. Why was the overlord of levitating goat Peak acting like this after losing the bet? The overlord of Silver Moon Valley declared loudly, fiend demons who did not obtain a blood sea badge can head back first. There's still a bet, right then, Solitary Cloud shouted from the crowd. That's right, don't forget about the bets. He's going to eat the badge. The demons cheered. The overlord of levitating goat Peak had a terrible expression. The young master of levitating goat Peak harumphed and stood out. Glancing sideways at Su Zimo, he declared loudly, Mo, I'm a man of my words and I'm a man of my words. With that said, the young master of levitating goat Peak flipped his palm and stuffed the blood sea badge into his mouth right in front of all the demons. Although the blood sea badge was not huge, it was made from superior class mystic iron after all and was difficult to digest or swallow. The young master of levitating goat Peak had no choice but to revert to his half-demon form and reveal his menacing goat head. He opened his mouth and swallowed the blood sea badge. The young master of levitating goat Peak calmed down and took a deep breath to recover. Mo, the fiend demons of Levitating Goat Peak are true to their words. We will never go back on our words. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak glared at Su Zimo coldly and said in a deep voice, "However, don't be too smug. I will never forget the humiliation I suffered today. One day, I'll make you pay me back 100 times over." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak had been thinking about that for 3 days and felt that it was excellent. Not only did it show his imposing manner, but it also showed his forbearance and determination. With that, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak flicked his sleeves and left in a carefree manner. At this moment, Su Zimo's voice rang out as he gently waved at him. "Is there anything else?" The young master of Levitating Goat Peak turned around and raised his chin towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo smiled and said, "The bet isn't over yet. Don't be anxious." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak froze for a moment. Immediately after, a blood-colored object floated over from not far away. In the blink of an eye, it arrived before Su Zimo and scattered on the ground. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak focused his gaze and his expression froze instantly. This large mass of blood-red things were all blood sea tokens. There were at least 300 of them at a glance. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak's forehead broke out in sweat and his throat moved instinctively. Gulping, he asked with difficulty, What do you mean by this?" "Of course, it's to fulfill the bet," Su Zimo replied indifferently. "You've only swallowed a single badge. As for these blood sea badges, they're all blood sea badges that I've gathered. As for you, you'll have to eat all of them." "You!" The young master of Levitating Goat Peak gripped his fists tightly and glared furiously, arguing loudly, "I didn't say that I'll eat so many of them in the bet." Su Zimo asked instead, "What did you say in the bet?" The young master of Levitating Goat Peak's expression flickered guiltily without replying. "In the bet, you said that you'll eat the blood sea badges if I manage to obtain them." Su Zimo pointed to the mountain of badges before him. "Then, let me ask you, are these blood sea badges?" The young master of Levitating Goat Peak was sweating profusely and shook his head repeatedly. His stomach rumbled as he looked at the mountain of badges before him. Just now, he almost spat out the badge that he swallowed. "I'm not eating them." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak's voice was trembling. What a joke. Eating a blood sea token was not a big deal. But the mountain of badges before him was almost a small mountain. How big of an appetite did he have to swallow all of them? Even if he did, he wouldn't be able to digest such a huge mountain of badges. Not far away, some of the fiend demons could no longer hold it in and burst into laughter. Their laughter was contagious. The demons roared in laughter. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak was flustered and looked at the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak in midair pleadingly. The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak's expression was frosty as he grit his teeth tightly. The muscles on his face twitched. It was clear that he was enraged. "Young man, you should spare others whenever possible." The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak finally spoke and said word by word coldly, "You had better not go overboard." "Go overboard?" Su Zimo chuckled and shook his head gently, asking instead, "May I ask, overlord, who was the one who suggested this bet?" The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak remained silent. Su Zimo smiled gently and asked again, "Overlord, if I were to lose this bet, would you guys let me off?" The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak was silent. If Su Zimo were to lose, there was naturally no way he would let go of this opportunity. When Su Zimo saw that the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak was silent, he retracted his smile and asked indifferently, "One last question. Do you want to go against the Tao Oath?" The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak's lips twitched. Even demon emperors would not dare to go against a Tao Oath, let alone an overlord like him. This final question was truly heart-wrenching. He did not dare to answer. The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak closed his eyes. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Su Zimo turned to look at the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and pointed to the pile of blood sea badges in front of him, saying with a smile, "Go on and eat. There's more than enough badges." The young master of levitating Goat Peak wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He realized that he could not avoid this at the end of the day. He had to jump into a hole that he dug himself. The young master of levitating Goat Peak could only growl deeply and revert to his true form, grabbing a bunch of blood sea badges and stuffing them into his mouth. All the demons felt their stomachs ache at the sight of it. That mo sure is gutsy to dare to go against an overlord in such a manner. He's ruthless as well to not leave any face for the other party. He's not the ruthless one. You guys probably don't know about this yet, right? I heard that levitating Goat Peak and the others set up a trap to kill this demon 2 days ago. It's just that he didn't fall for it. Keep it down. Many fiend demons discussed in private as they watched the commotion. The number of blood sea badges before them decreased. The young master of levitating Goat Peak's expression was already turning pale. He glared at Su Zimo fiercely as he devoured the blood sea badges, wishing that he could devour Su Zimo as well. Chapter 855. The young master of levitating Goat Peak swayed from side to side with his huge belly. Every time it swayed, the group of demons could even hear the sound of metal scraping against metal coming from its stomach. After consuming the final blood sea badge, the young master of levitating Goat Peak could not hold it in any longer and sped towards the forest in a flash. The demons clutched their stomachs and the muscles on their faces cramped. After the first round, it was time for the fight for the final 10 spots. The rules of the fight were simple. The 100 fiend demons that obtained the blood sea badges were split into 10 groups. Each group had 10 fiend demons and they would face off in pairs on their respective arenas. For the first round, 5 fiend demons would remain on each of the 10 arenas and they would enter the next round. For the second round, 1 fiend demon would be eliminated from each arena and the remaining 4 would face off in pairs with 2 winners. For the third round, 1 fiend demon would be eliminated and the remaining 2 fiend demons would face off in pairs with 1 winner. For the fourth round, 2 fiend demons would remain on each arena and the final victor would be determined. The 10 fiend demons from the 10 arenas would enter the 1,000-year blood sea to cultivate. The 7 overlords stood in midair and exchanged glances before striking at almost the same time. Dermic powers surged and the wind and rain changed. On the flat ground beside the blood sea, mud churned and gathered continuously, forming gigantic arenas one after another. High-level fiend demons could already change the terrain with the use of their dermic powers. Before long, the 10 arenas were constructed. Right then, the young master of levitating Goat Peak flew back from afar. When he landed on the ground, he staggered and his gait was much weirder as well. The young master of levitating Goat Peak walked extremely slowly and raised his buttocks slightly. Each time he swayed, he would gasp. "What's wrong with him?" Little Fox was puzzled and asked curiously. Monkey burst into laughter. "He can't digest so many blood sea badges in his stomach and he'll definitely vomit and have diarrhea. However, it's not easy to expel such a huge pile of badges," Ling Hu continued. So disgusting." Little Fox pretended to vomit. Ling Hu snickered sinisterly. "Look at his gait. He must have pooped quite a bit." "How are you feeling?" the overlord of levitating Goat Peak asked with a frown. "I'm fine. I can still fight." The moment the young master of levitating Goat Peak said that, he realized that his throat was already hoarse. All the demons snickered. Everyone could tell that even if the young master of levitating Goat Peak did not suffer much damage after swallowing that pile of blood sea badges, it was torturous for him. The 10 overlords were divided into groups. Nominally, the overlords of levitating Goat Peak to the 7. However, the 7 overlords had a tacit understanding that they would split their strongest subordinates with their opponent's strongest subordinates in order to prevent both sides from suffering heavy losses. Apart from him, the young master of levitating Goat Peak, the silver-robed man from Silver Moon Valley and the woman in makeup from Thousand Snake Island were not in his group. The overlords seemed to be wary of Su Zimo's strength as well. In the first round, Su Zimo's opponent was a bull demon from Golden Flames Mountain. "Brother Imo, I saw you fight 3 days ago. I'm afraid I'm not a match for you given my strength." The bull demon cupped his fists. However, it's a rare opportunity to cultivate in the Blood Sea. I can't possibly back down without a fight and have to give it my all. Please. Golden Flames Mountain and Ape Chatter Ridge had always been on good terms, and the Bull Demon did not display any enmity. Brother Bull, please. Su Zimo cupped his fists gently and nodded with a smile as well. There were not many rules for the competition except for the fact that essence spirits were prohibited. Firstly, the essence spirits were already tested in the first trial. Secondly, it was way too dangerous for essence spirits to fight. In the past, paragons and fiend demons of two territories fought to the death with their essence spirits. In the end, both parties were severely injured and both fiend demons died one after another without making it through. Rumble. Boom. The bull demon reverted to his true form and burned with golden flames in a majestic manner. He charged toward Su Zimo with thunderous hooves. Not only did the bull demon of Golden Flames Mountain have a strong physique, the surface of his body burned with golden flames and was extremely powerful. Although the bull demon expressed weakness verbally, he was still indignant internally. He was a mid-level fiend demon after all. He wanted to compete with Su Zimo in terms of physical strength just because he was a major cultivation realm higher. Su Zimo did not move at all. When the bull demon arrived before him, he finally reached out slowly and placed his palm gently on the bull demon's head. He pressed his palm down. The bull demon's charge came to a stop. The bull demon's eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at the seemingly weak figure before him. The amount of power needed to stop his huge body was definitely several times more powerful than his. Furthermore, Su Zimo's defense was way too casual. He pinned the bull demon to the spot with ease. What was even more frightening was that the golden flames burning on the bull demon's body were extinguished against Su Zimo's palm. Not only that, the golden flames around Su Zimo's palm retreated continuously and were extinguished as well, as though they sensed something frightening. The bull demon was shocked. Su Zimo froze for a moment before realization dawned on him as well. The palm that he extended had the divine phoenix bone in it. No matter how strong the flames on the bull demon's body were, they could not compare to the flames of the divine phoenix. Su Zimo retracted his palm and the bull demon did not attack anymore. He lowered his head slightly and retreated in defeat. Before long, the first round was over and 50 fiend demons were eliminated. As expected, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak, the silver-robed man, the woman in makeup and the others entered the second round one after another. Solitary Cloud defeated his opponent and entered the next round successfully as well. In the second round, Su Zimo defeated his opponent without expending much effort and won yet another round. Su Zimo did not get a bye for the third round. In the fourth round, he and a fiend demon from Vermilion Cloud Valley were the only ones left on his arena. The fiend demon reverted to his true form of a toad and glared with a pair of emerald green eyes. He did not advance recklessly and instead conjured a dermic art. A sticky green ball of water tore through the air. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze. Not only was the ball of water created with dermic powers, it was laced with poison as well. However, a poison of that level could not hurt him. Su Zimo's blood chi rumbled and he slapped casually, shattering the ball of water. Striding forward, he arrived before the toad in the blink of an eye. Buzz. All of a sudden. Suddenly, the eyes of the gigantic toad protruded and burst forth with a series of resplendent lights. It was a visual technique. The emerald-eyed toad was a pure-blooded ferocious beast and visual techniques were one of their killing moves. Unfortunately, they were facing Su Zimo. Su Zimo did not resist and merely closed his eyes. When the resplendent lights landed on his body, they could not even penetrate his physical defenses. Your eye technique is still a little lacking. Su Zimo smiled gently and waved his sleeves, sweeping up the gigantic toad and tossing it out of the arena. Su Zimo emerged victorious in the end and obtained one of the spots to cultivate in the Blood Sea. The 7 overlords were expressionless. The 7 of them had expected this to happen. Before long, the outcome of the other 9 arenas was decided as well. Apart from the young master of Levitating Goat Peak who had a belly full of badges, another territorial lord obtained a chance to cultivate. Two fiend demons from Silver Moon Valley and Vermilion Cloud Valley obtained a chance to cultivate as well. Golden Flames Mountain, Mist, Thousand Snake Island and Ape Chatter Ridge all obtained a single person. Unfortunately, Solitary Cloud lost his final battle and did not manage to obtain a spot. Chapter 856. The 10 spots for the 1,000-year Blood Sea cultivation had been decided. The 1,000 demon meet continued, but Su Zimo and the others had just experienced a huge battle. After 3 days of rest, they would officially enter the Blood Sea. At night, there were sparks of fire near the Blood Sea. Some fiend demons surrounded blazing bonfires, some had gigantic night illumination pearls circling around them while some had balls of flames floating around them. There were many demonic arts that lit up the night. The demons drank merrily in groups of 2s and 3s or more. Dozens of them gathered together to drink and eat in a joyous manner. Apart from entertainment, the 1,000 demon meet was also a rare marketplace. At the borders of the 7 territories, there would be all sorts of stalls. Some sold treasures, elixirs, dermic weapons, and secret manuals. Everything was available. Most of the things in this market were bartering. Some of the unique spirit materials and ores were only produced in a certain territory. Therefore, many fiend demons gathered around the marketplace. Monkey, Linghu, and Ching Ching dragged the unwilling little fox over to watch the fun as well. In front of Ape Chatter Ridge, the old ape stood with his hands behind his back. His eyes were half closed and his white brows fluttered on both sides of his face without any wind. Behind him stood a green-robed cultivator. It was Su Zimo. The two figures stood silently and did not fit in with the hustle and bustle of the surroundings, as though they had fused into the night. The old ape glanced sideways and suddenly asked, "You sensed it?" Yes, Su Zimo nodded. For the past few days, he had a feeling that something big was about to happen. The heavens and the earth were filled with an indescribable murderous aura, and it caused him to feel waves of vexation. How rare, the old ape lamented. There were less than 10 fiend demons here who could sense it. To think that one of them would be a low-level fiend demon. The old ape opened his eyes and looked over. Stars dotted the skies not far away. However, the trajectories of these constellations were extremely chaotic. It was as if there was an invisible force that was manipulating the constellations in the sky. Su Zimo frowned and asked, "Is this uneasy feeling related to the stars in daytime the other day?" Perhaps, the old ape sighed. He couldn't say for sure. Ever since the stars in daytime that day, there hadn't been such a strange phenomenon. But when night fell, if one paid attention, they would still notice that the stars in the sky were in a mess, flickering between brightness and darkness. It was extremely abnormal. Could it be related to this sea of blood? Su Zimo suddenly recalled the terrifying blood-colored human face that he had seen in a daze when he had just arrived here. Perhaps it wasn't an illusion. I don't know. The old ape shook his head. Su Zimo pondered for a while and asked, "What's the origin of this sea of blood? How did it form?" "I don't know." The old ape shook his head again and smiled bitterly. Su Zimo frowned. The old ape had lived for at least 5,000 years, but it knew nothing about the Blood Sea. It seemed like the Blood Sea really had some background. Su Zimo asked again, "This Blood Sea is so miraculous that it can condense the blood and souls of 10,000 demons. Has no one explored its secrets over the years?" This time round, the old ape's tone was firm. However, he changed the topic immediately after. However, they should have all died in it. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Before Su Zimo could ask, the old ape continued, "I heard that there was once a grand demon that dived into the depths of the Blood Sea and did not make it out alive." Pissed. Su Zimo opened his mouth slightly in shock. Even grand demons were dead. Grand demons were equivalent to conjoint body mighty figures of the human race. They could release heaven and earth powers with every single move and could almost be considered as top experts of Tianhuang mainland. However, such an expert had still been silently devoured by the sea of blood before his eyes. A chill ran down his spine and Su Zimo could not help but shudder. The old ape smiled gently. "However, you don't have to worry. Given your strength, there's no way you guys can sink to the bottom of the sea. As long as you cultivate normally in the Blood Sea, nothing will happen. Furthermore, for so many years, nothing has happened to those who cultivate in the Blood Sea. Su Zimo nodded. The old ape swept his gaze and frowned in the direction of the demons of Silvermoon Valley and Levitating Goat Peak not far away. Those overlords were not around and their whereabouts were unknown. Even the fiend demons under their command that were about to enter the Blood Sea to cultivate were not around. Normally speaking, killing and fighting are prohibited in the Blood Sea, the old ape said in a deep voice. However, this Blood Sea can block the detection of spirit consciousnesses. In other words, no one outside knows what happens in the Blood Sea. You've got to be careful, the old ape reminded again. Su Zimo's eyes flashed coldly as he nodded. In a forest far away, it was pitch black and sinister. A few figures appeared one after another in the forest. Listen up, this Blood Sea cultivation is your last chance if you want to avenge your humiliation. An authoritative voice sounded. This is a blood-congealing bead, a Tao Lord Dermic weapon. The 5 of you have to work together to activate it. It's a blood-congealing bead. With that treasure, wouldn't the 5 of us be able to snatch all the essence blood and souls in the Blood Sea? A series of laughter sounded. That's enough. The authoritative voice from the beginning hollered and continued. You guys can cultivate normally after entering the Blood Sea. With the blood-congealing bead, there's a high chance that the energy in the Blood Sea will belong to the 5 of you. Although this demon is a low-level fiend demon, it's not easy to deal with. You guys have to find an opportunity and not strike recklessly. Understood? A few voices answered at the same time. Another cold voice said, if you want to strike, the 5 of you don't have to hesitate. Use your essence spirit secret skills and kill him in the Blood Sea. Understood? The 5 of them replied. The person sneered, after the Blood Sea cultivation ends and the demon dies, the 5 of you will be able to find a random excuse to cover it up. Even if the old ape is suspicious, he won't be able to say anything. Right then, a voice sounded from the side like metal clashing. How about we join in? With the help of Confusion Fog Swamp, that demon is dead for sure. At the same time, in front of Vermilion Cloud Valley's formation. The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley rubbed his chin and narrowed his eyes, looking at the 2 fiend demons before him who were about to enter the Blood Sea to cultivate in silence. A long time later, the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley heaved a sigh of relief and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness, as though he had made a decision. Both of you, listen up. If anything happens or there's a fight in the Blood Sea, don't help either side. Just stay out of it and you'll be able to survive. Understood? The 2 fiend demons of Vermilion Cloud Valley bowed in response. The gaze of the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley flickered, and he glanced in the direction of Ape Chatter Ridge in a seemingly casual manner, murmuring, could the true form of that demon truly be? Chapter 857. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Su Zimo and the other 10 fiend demons walked out one after another and stood still at the edge of the Blood Sea. Indeed, streams of extremely pure energy were emitted from the Blood Sea. It was scarlet, sticky, and gave off a strong stench of blood. Killing and fighting are forbidden in the Blood Sea, the overlord of Silvermoon Valley declared with an expressionless face. There's a limit to the amount of energy accumulated in the Blood Sea over the past 1,000 years. The 10 of you can fight for it with your own capabilities. Go on in and cultivate. The moment he said that, a fiend demon leaped into the air impatiently and leaped into the Blood Sea. The fiendish demon dived into the Blood Sea, stirred up a wave, and disappeared. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak glanced sideways at Su Zimo and smirked coldly. In a flash he entered the Blood Sea as well. In the blink of an eye, all 10 of them entered the Blood Sea and vanished. The Blood Sea and the outside world were almost 2 different worlds. Even the spirit consciousnesses of overlords could not penetrate the barrier of the Blood Sea. Therefore, no one outside knew what would happen within the Blood Sea and could only guess. The overlords of Levitating Goat Peak and Silvermoon Valley exchanged glances and nodded. They were prepared this time round, and there would definitely not be any accidents. The moment he entered the Blood Sea, Su Zimo sensed an extremely pure energy surrounding him and was extremely rich. Su Zimo was secretly delighted. After a few exchanges during this trip, he had already sensed an opportunity for a breakthrough. Now that he was replenished with sufficient energy, he was going to obtain unimaginable benefits from the Blood Sea. While he was outside, his spiritual consciousness could not penetrate the Blood Sea. However, after entering the Blood Sea, his spiritual consciousness would not be affected. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness shifted and he caught sight of the other 9 fiend demons before long. Among them, 2 fiend demons of Vermilion Cloud Valley stood together. The fiend demon of Golden Flames Mountain and him each occupied a region. However, there were a total of 6 fiend demons from Silvermoon Valley, Levitating Goat Peak, Thousand Snake Island and Confusion Mist Swamp. They were united and occupied the center of the Blood Sea. When he noticed that the 6 of them were united, Su Zimo narrowed his eyes and his gaze flickered. The purpose of his trip was to break through to the next realm. If these 6 people did not find trouble with him, he would not take the initiative to provoke them. But if these 6 people didn't open their eyes, killing intent flashed in Su Zimo's eyes. Su Zimo circulated his chi and blood, constantly absorbing the energy in the Blood Sea. Streams of energy surged into his body, flowing through his limbs and bones, fusing into every inch of his flesh and blood. Streams of energy surged into his sea of consciousness and fused with the red-haired Een spirit and the black-haired primordial spirit. Scales appeared on the scarlet-haired Een spirit's body one after another as it reared its head and roared into the skies, releasing a powerful suction force. Purple lightning flashed in the black-haired essence soul's eyes. There seemed to be Sanskrit chanting around it as it constantly absorbed the surrounding energy. The Qinglian of creation spun slowly. 4 layers of lotus petals, a total of 36 petals bloomed, emitting streams of misty chaos chi. Endless energy surged into his sea of consciousness and was absorbed by the 2 essence spirits and the Qinglian of creation. With the Qinglian of creation and the 2 essence spirits, a vortex was formed above Su Zimo's head that spun continuously. If one focused their attention, they would realize that there was a power that could not be ignored emanating from Su Zimo's wrist as well, absorbing the energy in the Blood Sea. The fiend demons of Golden Flames Mountain and Vermilion Cloud Valley revealed envious expressions. There was a limit to the energy in the Blood Sea. Whoever plundered the most would gain the most benefits. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak, the silver-robed man and the other 5 were in the middle of the Blood Sea. When they saw that, their expressions were cold and murderous. The 6 of them exchanged glances and nodded. The silver-robed man withdrew a blood-red bead from his storage bag that was the size of a human face carefully. It was a Tao Lord Dermic weapon, blood-congealing bead. The moment the blood-congealing bead was taken out, the energy in the Blood Sea surged towards the blood-congealing bead, as though it was attracted by a powerful force. The 6 fiend demons were delighted. The blood-congealing bead was already causing such a commotion even before they refined it. If the 6 of them were to refine it together, wouldn't all the energy in the Blood Sea belong to them? Without hesitation, the glabellas of the 6 fiend demons shone and released streams of spirit consciousness into the blood-congealing bead. Buzz. 4 blood-colored dermic patterns shone on the blood-congealing bead. This was a supreme-grade Tao Lord dermic weapon. One after another, streams of energy that were visible to the naked eye surged towards the blood-congealing bead before surging into the bodies of the 6 fiend demons. Look, what a strong power of plunder. It's formed a vortex. On the plains, a fiend demon pointed to a vortex that was floating on the surface of the Blood Sea and exclaimed, "Look over there." The demons shifted their gazes and saw an even larger vortex appear in the middle of the Blood Sea. The overlords of Silvermoon Valley and Levitating Goat Peak smiled gently and could not conceal the glee in their eyes. "What methods did you guys use?" The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain could not hold it in any longer and stood up, questioning loudly, "How can the few of them cause such a huge commotion?" I don't know about that. It's only normal for juniors to have some trump cards up their sleeves, the Overlord of Silver Moon Valley replied indifferently. The Overlord of Golden Flames Mountain glared angrily. What are the other fiend demons in the Blood Sea cultivating for if they plunder so brazenly? They can't be blamed for that. It's all based on their own capabilities, the Overlord of Levitating Goat Peak sneered. The energy of the Blood Sea is limited. If that calf from Golden Flames Mountain has the capabilities, he can cause a huge commotion as well. The Overlord of Golden Flames Mountain grit his teeth in hatred, but he could not say anything. Within the Blood Sea, Su Zimo frowned when he sensed the commotion on the other side. Naturally, he could tell that the dermic weapon released by the 6 fiend demons was a Tao Lord dermic weapon. The Tao Lord dermic weapon that the 6 fiend demons released together formed a powerful vortex that sucked away even the energy around him forcefully. They sure are generous to borrow a Tao Lord dermic weapon, Su Zimo cursed internally. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak and the other 5 fiend demons looked at Su Zimo smugly with mockery in their eyes. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak sent a voice transmission, "Mo, if you want to cultivate, you can come and beg us. If you're sincere, we might even consider it and agree to it." Ha! The other 5 burst into laughter. Su Zimo's gaze was cold. Right now, he was at the peak of mid-stage nascent soul realm and was close to breaking through. If he allowed the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and the other 5 to plunder as they pleased, he wouldn't be able to break through at all. Furthermore, there was no way he could raise Creation Qinglian to grade 5. Since you guys are unscrupulous, don't blame me for what happens next. Su Zimo's eyes lit up and were bloodshot in a sinister manner. Absorb. Su Zimo channeled the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra and reared his head into the skies. His entire body seemed to have transformed into a gigantic black hole that absorbed the energy of the Blood Sea endlessly. The Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra was a terrifying fiend technique that targeted bloodlines. Although the Spirit Condensation Pearl was a Tao Lord dermic weapon, it was not as domineering as the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. Instantly, an even stronger and more terrifying vortex formed around Su Zimo, engulfing the entire Blood Sea. Chapter 858. The entire Blood Sea was spinning majestically with a deep depression right in the middle. It rumbled with a terrifying might. The demons were moved. Wasn't this commotion way too huge? The fiend demons below must have used some sort of Tao Lord dermic weapon, right? The Overlord of Golden Flames Mountain glared at the Overlord of Levitating Goat Peak and the others with a grim expression and said hatefully, "Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to create such a commotion given their strength." The Overlord of Silver Moon Valley and the others exchanged glances without saying anything. To be fair, they were surprised as well. The Overlord of Silver Moon Valley lamented internally, to think that the blood congealing bead would be able to produce such a great effect in the Blood Siege. Old ape, think of something, the Overlord of Golden Flames Mountain sent a voice transmission in frustration. The old ape sighed internally. There's no solution to this. Even if we know that they're up to something, we can't interfere. In reality, the situation in the Blood Sea was extremely different from what they had predicted. The ones who were truly flustered were not Su Zimo or the fiend demons of Golden Flames Mountain. It was the young master of Levitating Goat Peak, the silver-robed man and the other 5. The 6 of them worked together to summon the blood congealing bead. Initially, they wanted to make use of the blood congealing bead to plunder all the energy in the Blood Sea clean before attacking Su Zimo. But now, even the Tao Lord dermic weapon, the blood congealing bead, could not match the aura released from Su Zimo's body. How was that possible? Even if the 6 of them were not high-level fiend demons and could not unleash the true might of the blood congealing bead, how could this low-level fiend demon's plundering of the Blood Sea be even more domineering than the blood congealing bead? Not to mention the energy in the Blood Sea, even the blood in their bodies became restless for some reason and could not be calmed down. What sort of demonic art is this? The eyes of the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and the other 5 were filled with shock. The fiend demons of Golden Flames Mountain and Vermilion Cloud Valley were already hiding in a corner, trying their best to absorb the remnant energy in the area. There was not much energy left. Or rather, the amount of energy they could absorb was almost negligible against such a terrifying and domineering plundering. The energy in the Blood Sea was initially meant for the cultivation of the 10 mid-level fiend demons. And now, all of it had entered Su Zimo's body. It was not hard to imagine how much energy this was. The auras of the two primordial spirits continued to rise. At the same time, Qinglian of Good Fortune was also nourished. Her aura became more and more terrifying as she spun continuously. If one were to look carefully, they would discover that on the outermost periphery of the green lotus platform, fresh green petals were growing once again. Under the constant nourishment of the black-haired essence spirit, the tender green petals grew rapidly at an extremely fast speed. 9 more holes were added to the lotus throne. Now there were 45 of them. The 45 lotus holes spewed out streams of green light that fused into the black-haired essence spirit continuously, causing its aura to surge. 5th grade green lotus of creation. Creation Qinglian was nourished by the black-haired essence soul. On the other hand, Qinglian could also make the black-haired essence spirit even more condensed and powerful. The red-haired Yin spirit was the easiest to absorb the energy from the Blood Sea. This was because the scarlet-haired Yin spirit was a primordial spirit of a demon. All of a sudden, the scarlet-haired Yin spirit shuddered and opened his eyes, roaring into the skies. Boom! A series of raging waves surged within his consciousness. He had broken through. The scarlet-haired Yin spirit was already at late-stage Yin spirit realm, or late-stage nascent soul realm. In less than 15 minutes after entering the Blood Sea, not only did creation Qinglian advance, the scarlet-haired Yin spirit also broke through. Right then, Su Zimo felt a sense of danger. There was nothing unusual about the Blood Sea beside him. However, there was a suffocating murderous aura surging towards him, arriving in an instant. A spirit consciousness attack. An essence spirit's secret skill. Although Su Zimo's eyes were closed, a scene was reflected in his mind. There were already 6 figures surrounding him. They were the 6 young masters of levitating Goat Peak. The 6 fiend demons glared at Su Zimo with menacing expressions that were filled with coldness and ferocity, as though they were looking at a dead man. They had been waiting for this moment for way too long. The timing of their attacks was almost perfect. Su Zimo had just broken through and his cultivation realm was still unstable. At that moment, their attacks could be said to be fatal, disregarding whether Su Zimo would be able to react in time. Even if he did, his essence spirit with an unstable cultivation realm could not even condense his spirit consciousness, let alone defend against their essence spirit's secret skills. That single attack was enough to kill Su Zimo. Under normal circumstances, Su Zimo was indeed dead for sure. However, they were wrong about something. There were not 1 essence spirit in Su Zimo's consciousness, there were 2. The scarlet-haired Yin spirit had broken through while the black-haired essence spirit had yet to break through despite the fact that it was nourishing creation Qinglian continuously. Therefore, the black-haired essence spirit had already sensed it the moment the 6 of them moved. In a flash, Su Zimo made a prompt decision and fused the 2 essence spirits together. In the blink of an eye, a brand new essence spirit appeared. Its long hair fluttered and it was red and black. One of its eyes was red and the other black. It was extremely sinister. The scarlet-haired Yin spirit had just broken through and his aura was unstable along with his cultivation realm. However, his aura stabilized after the fusion of the 2 essence spirits. Buzz. A shimmering golden barrier formed around Su Zimo's body. It looked indestructible and ancient Sanskrit shone faintly on it. After the fusion of the essence spirits, he chose to activate the Mingwang prayer beads right away. Even though he had broken through to late-stage nascent soul, he was still a low-level fiend demon. There was almost no chance of him winning in a head-on clash of essence spirits against 6 top-tier mid-level fiend demons that cultivated essence spirit's secret skills. He could only retaliate if he defended against the 6 essence spirit secret skills with all his might. Dong. The 6 spirit consciousnesses collided against the golden barrier and let out dull thuds. Immediately after, the golden barrier formed by the Mingwang prayer beads shattered abruptly. Although the 6 spirit consciousnesses were weakened significantly, they were still terrifying and could destroy the essence spirit of any mid-level fiend demon with ease. Swoosh. The 6 spirit consciousnesses barged into Su Zimo's consciousness. However, Su Zimo's essence spirit had already leaped onto the creation lotus platform. One after another, scarlet spirit consciousness dragon scales grew on the surface of Su Zimo's essence spirit. 45 lotus seeds spewed out from the creation Qinglian and shone with a green glow. Mist rose and formed 45 rays of light that circled around him continuously. Cling, cling. The moment the 6 spirit consciousnesses descended, they were struck and sliced by the 45 lotus seeds repeatedly. To Su Zimo's surprise, the lotus seeds exuded an extremely frightening sharpness that could even slice and tear apart spirit consciousnesses. There were extremely few things that could defend against the power of spirit consciousnesses. The creation Qinglian could not do it as well. However, to think that the lotus seeds nurtured within would possess such a powerful effect. It was indeed true that the lotus could steal the creations of heaven and earth. The 6 spirit consciousnesses were sliced into pieces by the 45 lotus seeds. Although they still had strength left, they struck Su Zimo's essence spirit. However, they were blocked by the spirit consciousness dragon scales on his body and dissipated silently. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and his lips curled slightly as killing intent flashed through his eyes. After blocking the 6 essence spirit secret skills, others would be the ones to suffer next. Chapter 859. On the plains. The demons were staring fixedly at the frightening vortex in the middle of the Blood Sea. However, before long, the vortex dissipated gradually and the surface of the sea regained its calmness. What's wrong? What's happening below? All the fiend demons knew that although the Blood Sea looked calm on the surface, there were definitely turbulent undercurrents beneath. The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain was a little uneasy. From time to time, he would glance at the overlord of Silver Moon Valley. The old ape was still the same, leaning back on his chair like an old monk in meditation, as though he was asleep. Brother, why aren't you worried at all? The potential of that lad from Ape Chatter Ridge is unimaginable. Aren't you afraid that they'll backstab him? The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain could not help but comment, let me tell you, those people from Levitating Goat Peak are a little deranged. They're capable of anything. The old ape's eyes widened slightly as he replied indifferently, there's no point in being anxious. As for that lad from Ape Chatter Ridge, I'm not worried. That confident? The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain raised his brow. Don't forget, his cultivation realm is there for all to see. Can he win against the other party if they use Essence Spirit's secret skills? The old ape shook his head. I'm not sure if he can win against others. However, I reckon that he'll be able to escape at the very least if someone tries to harm him. On the other side, the overlords of Levitating Goat Peak, Silver Moon Valley, Thousand Snake Island and Confusion Mist Swamp exchanged glances and nodded secretly. Although they could not see the situation in the Blood Sea, it was easy to guess. If nothing went wrong, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and the others had already attacked. That was because if they attacked, they would not be able to use the blood congealing bead to absorb energy and the vortex would dissipate naturally. In reality, their guesses were more or less the same. Both parties had indeed exchanged blows in the Blood Sea. However, the actual situation was slightly different from the guesses of the 4 overlords. It was those slight differences that caused the entire outcome to be vastly different from what the 4 overlords had imagined. In the Blood Sea. From the release of the 6 Essence Spirit secret skills to Su Zimo releasing his trump cards consecutively to defend, the entire process seemed long upon narration, but in reality, it happened in the blink of an eye. The moment Su Zimo opened his eyes, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and the others had an ominous feeling. You provoked me before, so I spared your life. Su Zimo's voice echoed in the ears of the young master of Levitating Goat Peak. If you dare to touch me today, I'll send you on your way first. While a black shadow pounced on him, accompanied by a suffocating stream of water surging towards him. It was too fast. Although the young master of Levitating Goat Peak was a mid-level fiend demon and could move freely underwater, he lived on land most of the time. After entering the water, there was still a lot of discomfort. Furthermore, the resistance of the water flow to the body was extremely great. It was completely different from the air on land. However, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak had not expected Suzumo's speed in the Blood Sea to be even faster than on land. He arrived instantly. Subconsciously, he wanted to dodge backward. If they were on land, he would definitely be able to dodge this attack. But this was in the Blood Sea. In the end, he was still a little slower. That opening might not mean much in the eyes of others. However, in front of Suzumo, it was equivalent to him walking into the gates of hell. Suzumo's extended palm had already enveloped the entire world. Bang! The young master of Levitating Goat Peak could not retreat in time, and it was already too late for him to defend. This palm landed solidly on the top of his head. A series of cracks appeared on the young master of Levitating Goat Peak's head as blood and brain matter flowed out. His essence spirit was already shattered. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak's eyes were widened in disbelief. He had not expected that even 6 essence spirit secret skills would not be able to kill Suzumo. More than that, he had not expected Suzumo's counterattack to be so decisive that he had no chance at all. He's the descendant of an overlord, how dare you? The fiend demon of Confusion Mist Swamp was alarmed and was about to berate when before he could finish, Suzumo had already turned around and charged towards him. I don't care whose descendant you are. If you dare to kill me, you'll have to be prepared to be killed. In a flash, Suzumo shuttled through the Blood Sea like a fish in water and arrived before the fiend demon of Confusion Mist Swamp in the blink of an eye. He possessed the bloodline of dragons and possessed the spirit refinement technique of dragons. His body was equivalent to half a dragon. Dragons were born with the ability to summon rain and could even overturn rivers and seas. Suzumo was completely unaffected underwater. The true form of the fiend demon of Confusion Mist Swamp was an ancient gigantic crocodile and was not affected underwater. When he saw Suzumo close in, he transformed into his true form with a shake of his body. A gigantic crocodile appeared in the Blood Sea. Its body was covered in a thick and tough layer of skin that was comparable to defensive dermic weapons. The ancient gigantic crocodile opened its mouth and spat out an ancient saber. The back of the saber was extremely thick and it looked powerful with 5 dermic patterns etched on it. It was a perfect Dao being dermic weapon. A single look was all it took to tell that the saber was created by a weapon refinement grandmaster of the human race. The dermic patterns on it, including the hammering of the blade and the lines of the saber, were all extremely particular. The saber slashed down towards Suzumo's face. The sharpness of the saber sliced the Blood Sea into 2. At the same time, a series of strange ripples came from the water behind Suzumo. The dermic weapons of a fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak, a woman in makeup from Thousand Snake Island and 2 fiend demons from Silver Moon Valley had arrived as well. Suzumo's expression was unchanged as he slapped his storage bag and tossed out a grayish-black mountain peak to defend his back. It was the ancient unique treasure, Mystic Magnet Mountain. On the other side, his glabella shone and a green lotus platform flew out, colliding with the incoming saber. Qinglian Creation. This was the first time Suzumo had used the Qinglian Creation against an enemy ever since he obtained it. The Qinglian Creation spun slowly and was as clear as jade. It shone with a green glow and was filled with streams of chaos chi as it collided against the saber in a seemingly weak manner. Clang. There was a crisp sound. Immediately after, the entire Blood Sea seemed to have fallen into silence. Suzumo's pupils constricted slightly. The ancient gigantic crocodile's expression froze and its eyes were filled with endless shock. The saber in the Blood Sea was a perfect grade Dao being dermic weapon. After colliding with the seemingly fragile green lotus, dense cracks appeared on the saber's body. Swoosh! The saber exploded into a pile of shards that scattered into the Blood Sea and sank to the bottom of the sea. A perfect grade Dao being dermic weapon with 5 dermic patterns was shattered just like that. The two fiend demons of Golden Flames Mountain and Vermilion Cloud Valley who were watching the battle from the edge of the Blood Sea were shocked and choked on a few mouthfuls of seawater in a moment of carelessness. The ancient gigantic crocodile glared at the Qinglian that was floating in the Blood Sea and was so scared that he could not speak. Even connate dermic weapons could not shatter perfect-grade dermic weapons. That Green Lotus platform had actually shattered his Destiny dermic weapon. What was that Green Lotus platform? Right then, his essence spirit felt a sharp pain. His essence spirit received quite a shock from the shattering of his Destiny dermic weapon as well, as though it was torn apart by someone. The next moment, a green light flashed before his eyes. The Green Lotus platform descended and smashed onto his head. Chapter 860. Even a perfect-grade Dao Being dermic weapon was shattered by the creation Qinglian. How tough could the head of the fiend demon of Confusion Mist Swamp be? The head of the fiend demon of Confusion Mist Swamp exploded instantly and a blood mist gushed out, fusing with the surrounding Blood Sea. Even though the creation Qinglian was in the blood mist, it was still as green as jade and was not stained with blood at all. It shone with a crystalline luster and was shrouded by chaos chi. The essence spirit was destroyed and the fiend demon of Confusion Mist Swamp was dead. The headless corpse sank slowly into the depths of the Blood Sea and vanished. To be fair, even Su Zimo had not expected the creation Qinglian to possess such frightening killing power. It had been 100 years since he obtained this lotus platform in the ancient battlefield. For the past 100 years, Su Zimo had been nourishing it with his essence spirit and made use of the Blood Sea before him to nurture it to grade 5. For a Destiny dermic weapon, this was a rather long period of time. Furthermore, this was Su Zimo. If it was anyone else without 2 essence spirits and 3 heaven-defying spirit refinement techniques, it would be a fool's dream to nurture a grade 5 creation Qinglian within 100 years. Thankfully, his weight and effort did not disappoint him. The creation Qinglian was much stronger and more frightening than he had imagined. It was true that it could steal the creations of heaven and earth. Su Zimo had a feeling that this was not the end of the mysteries of the creation Qinglian. As his cultivation realm increased, the creation Green Lotus would release an even more dazzling brilliance. In the blink of an eye, 2 of the 6 mid-level fiend demons that surrounded Su Zimo were dead. The battle was not over yet. Cling, clang. At the same time, sounds of collisions could be heard from the Mystic Magnet Mountain. 2 of the 4 dermic weapons that attacked from behind were sucked in by the Mystic Magnet Mountain. Although the other 2 were not sucked in by the Mystic Magnet Mountain, they were repelled by it as well. The woman in makeup was shocked and exclaimed, "What is that?" The silver-robed man had a grim expression as he replied slowly, "It seems to be an ancient unique treasure, the Mystic Magnet Mountain. As for the Lotus Throne, I don't know. Everyone be careful. Keep your distance. Don't let him get close to you." The remaining fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak hollered and retreated. Silver Moon Slash. The glabellas of the silver-robed man and the other fiend demon from Silver Moon Valley shone as they channeled their spirit consciousnesses and gathered dermic powers, releasing a powerful demonic art of the Silver Moon Wolf race. 2 dazzling silver lights cut through the sea of blood and arrived in front of Su Zimo in an instant. The temperature in the Blood Sea plummeted. Wherever the 2 streaks of silver light passed, the sea of blood even showed signs of freezing. On the other side, the woman in makeup flicked her wrist gently and 2 sharp dermic weapons approached silently, emitting a fatal killing intent. This was a Dharma artifact refined from the poisonous fangs of the snake race. Even the Mystic Magnet Mountain could not absorb it. The fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak opened its mouth and spat out a flying sword made of an unknown material towards Su Zimo's back. At the same time, he channeled his spirit consciousness and released a demonic art. Suddenly, bone spikes made of dermic powers appeared in the Blood Sea one after another. There were at least dozens of them and they surged over, wanting to turn Su Zimo into a sieve. Su Zimo executed killing moves consecutively and killed 2 fiend demons. However, the remaining 4 were not to be underestimated as well. The combat strength of the four of them could be considered as top-tier experts among mid-level fiend demons. Even Solitary Cloud was not a match for them. When the four mid-level fiend demons attacked at the same time, the power of a major cultivation realm above them surged over and posed an immense threat to Su Zimo. Roar! Su Zimo's blood chi rumbled as he reared his head and howled. The terrifying roar had already squeezed away the sea of blood around him, forming a vacuum. Immediately after, gigantic ancient demon kings appeared one after another around him with menacing fangs and claws. Their gazes were frightening and lifelike. Bloodline phenomenon. Bloodline phenomenons were the only things that could defend against the attacks of four top-tier mid-level fiend demons. 7 demon kings of the great wilderness had appeared. The 8th demon king should be a dragon king. However, Su Zimo had only cultivated the Yin spirit section and had not touched upon the Yang spirit section yet. Yet, the 8th demon king was merely a phantom. However, just the phantom of the 7 demon kings was enough to shock the fiend demons in the Blood Sea. Bloodline phenomenons were something that could only be obtained when one's bloodline was extremely powerful. It was a level higher than tsunami blood. Bang, bang, bang. The collision of demonic arts was massive. In the blink of an eye, the 7 demon kings dissipated and the demonic arts of the 4 fiend demons were dispelled by the 7 demon kings without any effect. At the same time, Su Zimo willed and the creation Qinglian drifted towards the 2 venomous fangs behind him. Fifth. There were 2 crisp sounds. The 2 venomous fangs were shattered by the creation Qinglian. That was the destiny dermic weapon of the woman in makeup. Her expression changed and she opened her mouth gently, spitting out a mouthful of blood. She glared at Su Zimo with shock in the depths of her eyes. The phantom of the 8th demon king gave her a sense of trepidation. It was a fear that originated from the depths of her soul, her bloodline and her bones. It was an absolute suppression of her bloodline. The creation Qinglian charged towards her in a seemingly unhurried manner. However, it arrived in the blink of an eye. The woman in makeup shuddered and snapped out of her stupor. Hurriedly, she waved her hands and set up dermic power barriers in front of the creation Qinglian. At the same time, the woman in makeup had thoughts of retreating. She wanted to make use of the dermic power barriers to escape from the Blood Sea and distance herself from Su Zimo while the creation Qinglian was obstructed. However, she soon realized that she was wrong. The dermic power barriers she set up were like paper in front of the creation Green Lotus. They had no effect at all. The creation Qinglian drifted and penetrated them with ease, chasing after her like a shadow. Immense fear rose in the heart of the woman in makeup. Suddenly, she realized that all her methods were useless against the Green Lotus platform. She could not even block it for a moment. A look of determination flashed through the eyes of the woman in makeup. Abandon her body. Abandoning his physical body and leaving the Blood Sea with his essence spirit was better than having his essence spirit destroyed and dying here. A thumb-sized snake burrowed out of the top of the woman in makeup's head and sped towards the surface of the sea with a flash of light. The moment her essence spirit left her body, the creation Qinglian smashed her head into smithereens. That was the difference between life and death. The woman in makeup lowered her head and felt a sense of trepidation. If she was slower by half a breath, her essence spirit would have been destroyed by now. Just as she was secretly rejoicing, a mysterious change happened to the Green Lotus platform beneath. Suddenly, 45 lotus seeds spewed out from the lotus hole on the Green Lotus platform. They turned into rays of light that intertwined with one another and sped over with an extremely sharp aura. They were way too fast. Although her essence spirit was a step ahead, the 45 lotus seeds caught up before long and pierced her essence spirit. In front of these 45 lotus seeds, her primordial spirit could not resist at all. The essence spirit of the woman in makeup let out a final shriek and its light dimmed rapidly. It was destroyed on the spot. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.